review those meeting minutes. So we do have two things on the agenda tonight. We have the Lofts 2. Both of these applications that are before us tonight are first timers from a new application standpoint. So the Lofts 2 application is it's a development plan rezoning, and Brian Winterhalter is here representing the applicant.
Excuse me, Rob.
Yes.
This is Tammy. May I make a general observation before we start the cases, please?
Sure.
When applicants contact you or whomever they contact to get on the schedule, they need to know that they absolutely have to send the plans to John Carter. He got no plans for tonight. So where he could be valuable to us all, he is hamstrung. So please be sure that everyone coming to you or to whomever gets, is assigning, tells people that all of the panelists include John Carter. This is not the first time that's happened, but I thought we had it cleared up. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. All right, we'll make a note of that. So again, the applicant did send out both an electronic link that we sent out to everybody, and then plus the plans I think were mailed to many of us at homes. I have heard from a few of you about you'd prefer to see the plans come to you one way or another, maybe electronically only or by mail. And we'll try to generate a better list of that so applicants are not, sending people in the mail plans in the future. We just don't have that that list developed fully yet, and so we'll work on that and to see if everybody has a preference for that. So the applicant did send, in addition to plans, statement of justification, the Reston Planning and Zoning questionnaire was filled out. And again, this is we're starting with Lofts 2 tonight. And Brian, let me just let you jump into your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would love to. If someone would kindly give me the ability to share my screen, that would be very helpful.
Okay, just give me 1 sec.
All right. Can everybody see this? All right, excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. We're glad to be here. As Rob has noted, this is our first meeting before you all. We have filed this application a couple of months ago. It has not yet been formally accepted by Fairfax County, but we are anticipating that it will be accepted relatively shortly. Our team is here. This is an application with Pulte. David DeMarco, Chris Barr, and Bobby Varner of the Pulte team are here. Our engineers, our land design consultants, and Jessica Bradshaw is here on behalf of LDC. And Garov Slade is our traffic consultant, and Kayla Ord is here with us this evening. If they are going to chime into the conversation, we may have some of those folks elevated to the panelist level, it sounds like. But I'm going to give you a quick overview of the application, and then we can get into some questions and answers and discussion. This is the location of the site. It is south of Sunset Hills Road, north of Reston Station Boulevard, in the northeast quadrant of the Wheelie-Reston East Metro Station area. The site consists of 4 parcels. 3 of the parcels are developed with existing low-rise office buildings. Collectively, those 3 buildings, which if you can see my cursor, are here. Those 3 buildings comprise approximately 48,000 square feet. The additional 4th parcel that is part of this consolidation effort is located east of this extension of Reston Station Boulevard back to Sunset Hills Road. It is this surface parking lot right here. This surface parking lot is a portion of the development, or the property, I should say, that was rezoned in a joint rezoning application with Meridian, who's the owner of the 11111 Sunset Hills Road office building, and Rooney, which is developing the residential over in this portion of that property. That existing surface parking lot is part of that overall rezoning application to the PDC district. The 3 parcels off of Samuel Morse Drive are currently zoned I-4. Under the existing approvals for the Rooney/Meridian development, the surface parking area that's part of this application is currently approved for approximately 226,000 square feet of office, hotel, or senior housing under that existing rezoning application. So as you see here, we have a 4-parcel consolidation. The overall area is approximately 6.4 acres. This area is frankly not a great candidate for redevelopment with additional office space as currently recommended for the 3 Samuel Morse Drive parcels in the comprehensive plan. The specific comp plan recommendation is for a 0.5 FAR. There are better located office sites at this metro station area, at other metro station areas in Reston and in the region. There's not an abundance of amenities toward the eastern end of the northeast quadrant at Wheelie here. There's easier access to metro from closer properties for office development, and more usable office space configurations that led themselves to office space being, as other applicants in this area, and not only at this station, but other stations have clustered the office much closer to the metro station areas. So this 4-parcel consolidation is, we think, very much appropriate for a different use than currently recommended in the comprehensive plan. And we'll describe the specifics of that in a minute. To come back to the overall area, this is a context exhibit. It's a little blurry, sorry about the image quality, but you can see here where this development fits into the larger context of the overall Wheelie metro station area. The blue line is the path to the metro station from the site, and you can see that with this proposal, which we think is very much compatible with the development and the emerging neighborhood in this quadrant and at the Wheelie metro station as a whole, there is a transition from the higher density development toward the metro station and the approved development at midline when you start heading east from Wheelie Avenue with the larger buildings on JBG's blocks, starting to taper down in density with the predominantly residential uses on the EYA blocks, and then Rooney's development, and then the adjacent Lofts 1 project, which Pulte completed. This density at this site is proposed to be very much in keeping with the character of that development with respect to building heights, massing, and the overall intensity of the use. It's a good transition as you move farther away from the metro station, the core of the metro station area, while of course still being very much easily walkable to the metro station down Reston Station Boulevard. This is just a quick overview of the approved developments in the area. And again, just to note that this proposed development would more or less, not entirely, because there are a couple of adjacent parcels, the Bognet parcel, which is here, and the condos that are office condos that are here. But this would take a nice portion of the remaining area in this quadrant and complete much of the development in this area. So with respect to the proposal, I mentioned that the property is currently recommended for a 0.5 FAR for office or light industrial uses under the current comprehensive plan. However, the task force that is underway and has forwarded its recommendations to county staff has recommended that the area be subject to a recommendation of a 1.0 FAR for residential uses. And you can see here, I won't read all this text, but it includes transportation conditions, tree canopy, updated stormwater management, and essentially making this development not only meeting updated county criteria in the comprehensive plan compared to when the properties were developed with low-rise office buildings, but also very much in keeping with the overall character and completing the transportation network in this area, which is an important part of this application. Here is a layout of the proposed development. There are 3 multifamily buildings, 2 fronting on Sunset Hills Road, and a 3rd sort of along Reston Station Boulevard and the new east-west road, north-south road here. the proposal would relocate this existing road, which is about here, extend Reston Station Boulevard, and relocate the connection to Sunset Hills Road over in this location. The overall proposal is for 90 stacked townhouse units, which you see largely along Reston Station Boulevard here, and 100 multifamily units in the 3 buildings. There is 1.49 acres of open space for this site and 0.83 acres of urban parkland. Both of those exceed the minimum county requirements as they would apply to the site. And I'll note, while we have this nice color illustrative up, we have some nice park space, children's play area internal to the site here. And then we have a nice park with a good amount of frontage on Reston Station Boulevard here, which would be a nice public amenity for folks. These are architectural renderings to give you an example of the architectural character of the proposed development. The stacked townhouse units are on the left. The multifamily building is on the right. And again, just to give you a representation of the high quality of architectural design for the project. One of the things that we've been talking about with this project internally and want to share with you is not to get into the details of all of the individual floor plans. However, one of the things we wanted to note is that Pulte has been in the process of modifying some of their designs to accommodate, particularly in what's labeled the Sydney design here on the right, to have den space, which is perfect for a home office. There's balcony space. These are newer designs that are responding to the pandemic environment and working from home and people desiring more outdoor space. So that's very much part of this proposed development and what Pulte envisions here. And these modified units with this configuration have been very attractive to folks in a number of Pulte developments. With respect to affordable and workforce housing, the development as it's contemplated would have 9 ADUs per county zoning ordinance requirements and 16 WDUs per the comprehensive plan recommendations. That's based on our math and interpretation of the policies as they currently exist. We know that those policies are under review and may change, but we wanted to at least give you what we anticipate to be the ADU and WDU component of this project based on currently existing Fairfax County requirements and policies in the comprehensive plan. With respect to the proposed development, in terms of the overall density, the site and its 4 parcels is approximately a 1.38 FAR, and it is 100% residential and obviously 0% non-residential. We know that that's somewhat different than the FAR recommended in the comprehensive plan draft that's been preliminarily endorsed by the task force. And there's a reason for that, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. But one of the things I wanted to note about this slide and also the next 2 or 3 slides, all of these FAR calculations do not include any bonus density for ADUs and WDUs. So the proposal, as it is currently structured and as we're presenting it to you, is the all-in development. So there is no bonus density on top of what we're proposing. And in other words, when bonus density is applied to the project, the overall FAR will actually come down a bit because some of the square footage that is in the development proposal right now would actually end up being bonus density under the county policies. So if you take a somewhat broader view of the overall land area that the task force recommendation applies to and do the calculations of FAR and the density and the mix of uses, it is more in line with what is in the proposed comprehensive plan draft. And so if you include the entirety of the 11111 Sunset Hills Road office building property, the FAR is actually a 1.15. The mix of uses would be 63% residential and 37% non-residential. And again, the bonus density is not factored into this, so that 1.15 FAR would come down under the standard county policies. If you include the entire area between the current residential mixed use area, which includes the Loft 1 and the 1831 Michael Faraday site, if you include the entirety of the area east of that, all the way up to where the crossing is to be connected to Sunset Hills Road and then south to go across the toll road per the recommendations in the comprehensive plan. That area equates to, with our proposed development, a 1.23 FAR and would be 72% residential and 28% non-residential. And again, not including bonus density for ADUs and WDUs per current county policy. With respect to open space, I mentioned that we exceed both the open space requirement under the zoning ordinance and the open space per the urban parkland standard. So this is a depiction of the open space on the property. The requirement is 20%. We have 30% open space. With respect to urban parkland, the requirement based on 1.75 residents per multifamily unit and stacked townhouse at 333 residents would be 0.5 acres. The proposed urban parkland on the site is 0.83 acres, so we exceed that requirement as well. Again, noting the urban park area here along Reston Station Boulevard, all these would be publicly accessible and subject to public access easements. There would be, again, a children's play area in here, some passive recreation and uses in here. And the park spaces would have these types of amenities that are typical of Pulte's development projects, just to give you some examples on the screen here. As I mentioned, transportation is a significant focus of this project and one of the key drivers of what we think is an important reason for moving forward with this application. So there are a number of key things that this project will deliver with respect to transportation improvements for the quadrant and for Reston as a whole. So first, the development of this property will allow the completion of Reston Station Boulevard as a full street section with on-street parking on the north side, sidewalk, landscape amenity panel with street trees, and the typical cross-section that is recommended in the comprehensive plan. In addition, it would realign the connection of Reston Station Boulevard to Sunset Hills Road to the east in its ultimate condition, where it is planned to align with the crossing of the toll road, the South Lakes overpass, going from Sunset Hills Road through the property south across the toll road on the South Lakes overpass. In addition, the conversion of the site from its planned 0.5 FAR office and Meridian's entitled development on the surface parking lot to the proposed residential with 190 units would have fewer peak hour vehicle trips than the comprehensive plan recommended density and the entitled density on Meridian's property. So to show you in a bit more detail what that looks like, this image shows you in the grayed out section, the existing road section on Reston Station Boulevard. The bolder dark section is the section that we would be adding within the boundary of the proposed application site, which, as you can see here on the north side of Reston Station Boulevard, would include on-street parking, the amenity panel, an 8-foot sidewalk, and then the building zone as recommended in the comprehensive plan. This is the existing configuration of the connection from Reston Station Boulevard to Sunset Hills Road. That would be relocated here with this proposal, and again would align with the future crossing of the toll road. With respect to vehicle trips, if you take the 0.5 FAR office recommended for the Samuel Morse Drive parcels and office development on Meridian's parcel and compare that with the proposed development, there are far fewer AM and PM peak hour vehicle trips in the proposed residential condition, which is of course a benefit for traffic conditions in the area. And we wanted to end with this context slide just to give you a sense of the overall big picture. And that's all that we have in our presentation. We're of course happy to answer any questions and give you any more additional information about the project. The last thing I will say is, as I think we discussed already, but just to repeat it, the application is not yet accepted. We expect that it will be accepted very soon. And as a result, we of course don't have any comments from Fairfax County staff. We don't have any hearing dates or anything like that. This is very early in the application process, and we wanted to present to you sooner rather than later. So we look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Hey, Brian, just for our benefit, how long has the plan been in the county waiting acceptance? I'm just curious. We're seeing that taking a long time these days, and I'm just curious
Yes, it has been taking a long time with this application and frankly other applications as well. I could give you a specific date. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I want to say it's been a couple months and probably more.
Okay, just to give everybody a flavor that that's been happening a good bit. Applications are taking a good bit of time to just even get accepted with Fairfax County. Brian, before I start taking comments from the group, I did want to, can you clarify the this alternate proposed development in the application and how that may or may not affect the ultimate numbers you just spoke of? I mean, is it an alternate meaning that it could go away as a part of this development?
Yeah, so to clarify that, essentially there are 3 development options approved on the surface parking lot area that's owned by Meridian: an office building, a hotel building, or a senior housing building. There is not detail on the plan. It's not FDP approved at that level. It's a CDP level approval for each of those 3 options. And our proposal is essentially to layer on our residential option on top of that without eliminating Meridian's 3 development options. That was one of the things that Meridian wanted to ensure as part of coordinating with Pulte to go through this coordinated development effort.
So let me ask the question a different way, I guess. Is there a possibility that this development that you're proposing is proposed without that piece to it?
Not as it's proposed. It's possible that it may not be developed that way if it ultimately isn't developed by Pulte or Meridian according to the residential option that we are requesting in our application. So in other words, we are seeking CDP approval and FDP approval for our proposed residential development across all 4 parcels. The request is to have approval for that option. If for whatever reason there was a desire by Meridian to not move forward with that coordinated effort, then they would have the option to seek FDP approval, which they would need on any of their 3 existing CDP level approved options.
Yeah, I guess I understand that. It's the part I'm not understanding fully is how it changes potentially your calculations in the density, range, open space, and the like, but we can come back to that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Like, in other words, if for whatever reason their parcel was not part of the consolidated effort in its ultimate development, even though it would be as part of the approvals, if that ultimately didn't come to fruition, what would the calculations look like on just our
Yes.
parcel?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers, but we can certainly get that for you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask people to some of you have already done this. Raise your hand in the chat by if you click on the participants bar at the lower right hand corner, and then that brings up the little hand. You can raise your hand. Before we do that, I am going to recommend the committee. There's a lot of plans here. There's a statement of justification. There's the questionnaire. I'm going to recommend that we all consider submitting some written comment in addition to our verbal comments today, because this is the first time this applicant is before us. I think it would be good for us all. And I don't mind you if you want to send those to me and I can collect them and send them on to the applicant, or if you want to send those directly to the applicant and copy me. Just consider that tonight if it's just to feel you don't have to get all your questions in tonight and after you take all the information in that we're hearing this evening, and that'll be for both applications. So with that, let me jump right into Tammy's comments.
I will just start out. I reserve some time to ask some questions after others do, but I think that there are not sufficient setbacks from Sunset Hills, nor do I think there are sufficient setbacks from the main road, the station, Reston Station Boulevard. That is a huge concern to me. I'm also, you're supposed to have a complete street. Somebody goofed up on your plans, I think, and actually wrote alley on one of the streets. So you're not supposed to have alleys with the new draft. It's supposed to be a complete street with a streetscape. So that's a violation. You're supposed to have buku trees. That's a problem. I think the density is very dense. I'm concerned about that. I have to say, I love the facade that is the shades of gray. Classy, beats the hell out of the cartoon ones that we see all around with 5 different colors on the same building, that are so jarring. And you see that everywhere. You see that all over the county, all over the country, the same stuff. And this is the same similar architecture, but the colors are so muted and blend. Beautiful job on that, whoever did that. Those are just some high level comments. You know, I'm a little concerned about going over the 0.10 actually with the new way of doing the draft. If you're going to try to get in on the draft plan, that I've been on the planning committee. You're supposed to start at the bottom of that range of densities and work your way up by giving more trees, more setback, more something, and earning the 1%. You've gone over it. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. That's why I wanted John Carter to get these plans ahead of time so he could actually help you with some of this. And where are the people in here? You got almost 400 folks in here with 190 units, more than 400, because thank God you have some 3 bedrooms. Are these all for sale,
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
All be for sale units. Yep.
Yeah. I'm concerned on the price points, and I would like to have some information on how many bedrooms you're planning in the multifamily. Do you have that information?
So the 2/2s are 3 bedrooms.
Correct.
And I think I'll defer to David and Chris and Bobby, but I believe most of the flats units, the multifamily units, are 2-bedroom units or 1-bedroom units.
Okay. And do we have any studios in there? Go ahead.
We have two 32-unit buildings that are right on Sunset Hills Boulevard. Those are 2-bedroom units. Some have 2 bedrooms with a den. In the 36-unit building, which is on the Meridian parcel, we have 4 1-bedroom units in that building, and the rest are either 2 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms with a den.
And are you offering as ADUs all 2/2s as well as the condo units?
Yeah, we have a percentage that'll be the lower 2/2 unit, and another percentage that'll be in the condominium buildings.
So you are allowing ADUs to purchase 2/2s?
Yes.
Thank you. And then
we call this, I just want to make sure you all remember, this is called Lofts 2 because Lofts 1 is the adjacent parcel where we have one of the condo flat buildings and 1 stick of 2/2s that has been built today. It was before this committee several years ago.
Right. Okay. And where are these folks supposed to do their grocery shopping? There's no grocery within a mile of this place. We're this is right outside the TOD area, but it's some of it's within and a little bit's without. But where do you suppose these folks are going to do their grocery shopping?
I assume they're going to do grocery shopping in any number of the grocery stores around the area.
In other words, they're going to have a car.
Yes.
Yes.
All righty. And I am concerned about the number 6 on our our questionnaire lists sustainability goals and there's nothing there. So that's going to have to be fleshed out big time. And I thank you. I appreciate the work you've done on this. As I say, I'm very concerned about the density. Thanks.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm not seeing any other hands up here, gang. Just make sure. Oh, there's Bill Penniman. Bill?
Thank you. I guess, excuse me. In terms of the stacked townhouses, that's 2 over 2. Are those the equivalent terms, or is there something different?
No, those are equivalent. That's right.
Okay. It appears that the lower level of the stack gets a garage. The upper level, what are the parking arrangements for the above and below, and also for the multifamily? Can you just explain parking?
If you want to put that floor plan up, Brian.
Let me do that.
But they each have a 1-car garage is the short answer to your question, but you'll see how that lays out.
So in the 2 over 2 units, here's 1 unit's garage, and this garage would be for the other unit. So this is the lower unit garage. This is the upper unit garage.
Okay. And to the extent people have 2 cars, where will they park their second?
So there are surface parking spaces around the site.
I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of what about the
Yeah.
multifamily? Is that all indoor parking? Is there a mix, or what's
I mean,
the
there's
plan?
some surface parking that could be available for the multifamily or the 2 over 2s, but the multifamily will largely be in the multifamily garage underneath the buildings.
The 32 unit buildings are all self-contained in the parking podium, and it's the first level of the building, the garage. In the 36 unit building, there's 4 exterior spaces that will be dedicated to those residents.
And just, I know there's a number in here somewhere, but just in terms of the total number of parking spaces you're planning?
Hang on just a second.
I apologize for not remembering. It wasn't a reduction, I remember that, but I don't remember anything else.
305 is the number of parking spaces shown on our plan.
So basically 1.5 per dwelling unit?
Yeah, it's a combination of 1.6 and 1.5 for the different units.
Okay, ballpark, that's helpful.
Yep.
Are you providing electric vehicle readiness? In other words, at least the wire and the panel capacity so the resident can install the charger, or is that all left unaddressed?
We will
So-
provide some. We'll have some in the garage and some in some of the surface spaces that will be designated for electric vehicle charging stations.
So they'll be electric ready in the sense that there will be a branch circuit to each of the garages and to some of the outdoor spaces?
We'll actually have them designated. They won't just be ready. They'll actually be a physical station there, as there will be in the garage. Now, it won't be for every unit because the way the power company has us calculate it, we'd have to build a power plant if we made every unit ready, designed to be ready, because they count those spaces like they're running all the time, and it's not the best way to calculate it. But because of that, what we do is we install the maximum number that the buildings can handle, and then we have some community spaces as well for the condos.
And can you give me an idea just how many that will mean?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I think the requirement's 2%, but we've been pretty consistent with doing 4%.
So of the 300 units, there'll be 12 with chargers or with electric readiness?
There'll be 12 that will have chargers. And if people want the option and the power grid can handle it, they can option more.
Okay, well, let me just say, I think that is inadequate for the needs, and given the substations in the area, I find it hard to imagine that Dominion can't handle EV readiness to a larger extent, given that there will be people, I'm not sure when this would actually be built, but there are car companies that say they're not even going to manufacture traditional vehicles after 2025, and others will go longer, but EV readiness is critical, and I'd like to have further discussion of that.
We
at
certainly
least one
can.
per
And
dwelling unit.
yeah, I have no resistance to that, only the physical limitation from the power company. I hear what you're saying. I'm just sharing with you information. We did another zoning recently, and it became a pretty big issue. We were able to double the minimum requirement, but we were not able to make it for more because of how I explained it to you. But I'm happy to look into it further, and for this site specific, because I do agree with you. I think there is going to be a bigger need.
Okay. What's going to be on the roofs of these buildings? Is that usable space, or is it just roof?
On the condominium flat buildings, it's not usable space. But on the 2/2s, our new layout, in addition to what you've seen here, we do have an option for a rooftop deck that I envision. It's too early to say exactly what the market wants now, but if I was building it today, I would recommend we do rooftop decks on all of them.
Okay. If you have a rooftop deck, obviously that's a use for the space. But I would ask you to look at green roofs. You're going to hear more from somebody else on that. But vegetated roofs, particularly on the condo building, it's environmentally and economically sensible. In terms of the open space, I saw the numbers you have as to what's the total space. In terms of the useful space, it doesn't look like very much of it is, or that much of it is not very useful. It may be nice to walk by, but it doesn't provide much in the way of actual recreational opportunities. And I think that needs to be worked on. If my recollection of Lofts 1 is that Lofts 1 is basically, and I may be mixing it up with one of your neighbors, but if I recall correctly, it's basically surrounded by asphalt. And I would expect that this one will do better, and may even be expected to be providing part of the park space to those. I guess for now, those are my very preliminary comments and questions. The density, given the location, I understand the argument. I guess the other question is energy efficiency. Have you got any plans or commitments in that area for building envelopes for the choice of fuel? Is it going to be all electric? Is it going to be, so what's the plan there?
There is an energy efficient design standard we will meet. I don't have that information in front of me, but I'm happy to get that and share it with you.
Okay. And are you planning, are these going to be a gas or all electric, or do you have a plan on that yet?
We haven't finalized that plan. I can look and tell you. I believe the Lofts is electric, Lofts 1. So I would expect it to be electric. There may be gas water heaters, but I will have to get back to you on.
Yeah, thank you. So that's it for right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Let me go to Michelle, and then we'll go to William Pegues after Michelle.
I can't raise my hand on the system, Dick Kennedy, but please put me in line at the end there.
Will do, Dick.
Tammy had asked you what are your percent about the ADUs and WDUs. You said you had percentages of which ones will be the 2/2. How many are we really looking at for the 2/2?
We will have ADUs. We will have 2/2s that include ADUs, and we will have the multifamily units as well. But we haven't gotten into the numbers and specific details on which units will be which yet. There will be a combination of both, though.
Okay. And then you talk about missing middle housing and how this is going to fill a need in Reston for affordable housing. What's the price point of these units?
David, do you want to speak to the price point?
Yeah, I mean, we believe that the prices will be, probably in the 650s to the 750s for the 2/2. And then historically, our average condominium flat price settles in right in between those two prices as well.
I don't think that many would think that's meeting any of our affordability needs.
Well, that's not the price point for the workforce or the affordable units. That's I was sharing with you what the market rate price point would be.
Agreed, but just in reading your application and description of missing middle and what the whole property is going, the whole all of the parcels will provide Reston. I'm saying I don't think that those price points are meeting that idea of providing greater affordability. I mean, you're really only talking about 25 units, right? That would be affordable.
So,
Okay.
so two things. One is understood. I appreciate your comments, and the second thing is that there is missing middle in terms of price points. There's also missing middle, which typically is described as not only price points, but also a variety of housing options. And so any new construction is going to necessarily have higher price points, but the higher price points for, the 2/2 units, particularly the upper 2/2 units, are good sized units with 3 bedrooms. I mean, they're like 2,500 square feet. So that is an important housing option in the housing market that is cheaper than a single family house.
That's not true. We have single family homes that are less than that. But I understand that you're talking about housing diversity. However, we already have that housing in Reston. We have quite a bit of it. We have clusters. We have this. So I share some of the concerns that have already been brought before you. And I think that this could use a lot of work. But that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. William Pegues, and then we'll go to Matt after that.
There, I'm unmuted. Okay, basically, I will have to say that I've agreed with everything else that everyone has said so far. I wanted to ask a question relates to the blank space that's behind the garages before you get to the street. Is that big enough for someone to put their car there, a second car? Or what is intended for that? Because it just shows up as a blank, undesignated area on the plans.
That is on that layout that you're looking at, that's contemplated to be a parking space.
Okay. That helps with the 2-car situation that someone was asking earlier. Okay, the other thing is that I really want to emphasize green roofs, vegetated roofs in specific, and it doesn't matter what your structural system is. They're put all the time on wood structure systems. So I'm not sure whether you're a stick-built system here in the condo buildings, but anytime you have a flat roof, you can certainly save a lot of energy. There's a simple example with a absolute minimalist design of a vegetated roof, which has only little sedums on it. If the day is 72 degrees outside with a clear sunshine, the tests have shown that a white roof will still be 110 degrees, but the soil surface of a vegetated roof will be 71. That's 1 degree lower than the ambient air temperature. And that makes a big difference on, say, what you have to do in terms of insulation and the people who live on the upper floor, as well as, the air handling system that then has to cool it. The other thing is with a vegetated roof, if you use the right kind, which is one of the ones it's called a purple concept, which is a generic term, not a proprietary term. Many roofing manufacturers can do this. This will let you do detention for water, which slows it down, and that will make it any of the stormwater retention tanks that you have may have to be much smaller or can be much smaller. And it eases the stormwater issues that we're seeing overwhelming the outfalls, even in the existing condition. So, just staying even with what comes down and goes out into the outfall right now is really not good enough for the future, because we're seeing too much water coming out of the sky as it is. The other thing I wanted to mention is that any of your catch basins off of curbs, Fairfax County has done an interesting experiment in one of their residential areas, and Tyson's Corner has an interesting thing that you can go and look at. It's in front of the new Porcelanosa building, or not building, but their outlet that's on the service road off of Route 7. And what they've done there is that the catch basins that come off of the service road go immediately into a dry well. They have some of them configured with some plants in them, and some of them configured simply as a rock garden. And you can go down there and look at that, because they're basically kind of an experiment that's running. But basically what happens is that it becomes a miniature stormwater detention tank. You can link them together. New York City is actually doing this in the terms of thousands of these things along their streets, where each one of the tree wells becomes a miniature detention tank, and they connect with each other. So as the water builds up, and it ultimately overflows into the next one down the line, and slows the water that goes into in their case, a combined sewer system. Here, it just keeps it from going into the outfall system during a heavy rain and overwhelming the outfall. Basically, that's about it. I think I like the looks. The looks are a little nicer than the things that we've been currently seeing, as someone else also said. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you, William. Let me go on to Matt, then we'll go to David, and then Dick Kennedy after David.
All right, I think I'm unmuted now. I think overall it's a decent start. I do actually think that, if we're going to have density of a higher level in Reston, this is kind of where you want it, in the main sort of high density developments around the metro station. So I don't really have any major issues with the density. I would like to ask, in the multifamily buildings, what is the anticipated number of stories for those buildings?
What we do is we have the first level is a concrete podium parking garage, and then there's 4 levels above that will all be stick construction.
Okay, so it's type 5A over type 1 podium parking garage.
Yeah.
So those are all elevator serviced buildings.
Correct.
On the site, your HVAC units for the townhouses, would those be pad mounted at grade, or are those up on the roof somewhere? And I know we're getting into some architecture.
Yeah, that's yet to be determined, and we've done them both ways. It'll depend on the final layout.
Okay, and I would say, I think it's nicer when you can get them up on the roof. And also the same thing for the multifamily buildings. I think you'd probably have to put them up there. You might want to consider using VRF units or something like that. That also would allow you more square footage up there if you did want to incorporate a roof deck or a green roof or something to that nature as well. I think kind of taking a step back a little bit from the architecture, understanding that you guys are early on in the process, likely aren't even working with an architect at this point on any of these design questions. So these are all just kind of placeholder sort of answers. From a master planning standpoint, I think my biggest criticism of kind of the entire site layout is how sort of chopped up the green space is. I mean, it's definitely clear that you are trying to maximize the density, which, as I said, I do understand on this site, based on what's allowable and the adjacencies. But I personally would like to see some sort of more integration of the green spaces into maybe one larger green space that has sort of an axis that kind of connects it back in with some of the existing streetscape and some of the other green spaces in the rest of the development as you're coming out to Wheelie Avenue. So I'm kind of looking at this entire area and how all these different developments are working together. And I think how your development integrates with both what's planned and has already been built there is going to be really important for me going forward. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do that right now, but I do think that those view angles and connection points and trying to really make a significant green space rather than sort of these, chopped up little leftover corners is something that would go a long way, in my opinion, to, really make this something special. That's all I've got for now.
Thanks, Matt. We'll go to David and then to Dick Kennedy after David.
Thanks, Rob. I think Matt is on to something about readjusting the design to make the green space a little bit more cohesive. One question, and we're traveling, so we don't have the plans in front of us. Are all these 190 units going to be RA members?
So
We'll petition the association, of course, like we did previously, but that's our vision.
Okay, that's good. And I think echoing a couple of other comments that at least the facade design of your renderings look nice in comparison to some of the other stuff we've seen. And I think Sue has a question too.
I agree with Matt as well on need to integrate the green space. There was an area where you have it looks like 4 units, and it's really cuts up a nice triangular area for a green space that could be used for recreational purposes. At your next presentation, I would like to see more detail presented on recreational opportunities. It's really important for multifamily living and especially for 2-bedroom plus den living space. And the other questions I had have already been answered. Did you have anything on the ADUs?
No, well, one other thing. Yeah, I understand your position on the ADU and WDUs. I'd really like to see you try to eke out a few more units if you can. I think you're at right about 13% right now. And it would be nice to see, since it's so close to within a half a mile of the station, I think it'd be nice if you could eke out a few more units. And that's all I have.
Thank you, David and Sue. Let's go to Dick Kennedy, and then we'll go on to John Capilla after Dick.
Thank you, and thank you to whoever got me back into the system here. I had gone in and out 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then each time it got better. And then, so thank you, whoever you were, to help me in this. I have a general question, and you may not have an answer, but Brian, I know you've been involved in a lot of this. I'm curious. I drove down the major road leading into, I think it's called Station Road, or but it goes directly to the point of getting into the stops for Metro, and it is kind of exciting to see that finally coming to rest, or coming to completion. I'm curious, how many housing units have already been built or are under construction in that piece, where this would be the last piece, as far as I can tell, of residential. Do you have a guess to make, or could you get that number generally?
Yeah, I could certainly get that number for you by adding up all of the approved developments. I don't want to wager a guess and be off base, but I can certainly get that number for you.
And thank you very much. I think it'd be interesting because you're making the argument that you don't want to mix any commercial in here, and I can almost understand that as I drove about over a half mile down that new major road. But it is certainly walkable for most. Why do you want to have in the multifamily condominiums instead of rentals? And I may have a guess, but I'd like to hear what your argument is on this, or your.
Well, first of all, we don't do rentals, so that's the short answer to the question. But what you'll find, and we do this condominium product all over Northern Virginia, in Fairfax and Vienna. We have one planned in Tysons, as well as the one we built in Reston, and also on the other side of the river in Maryland, in some of these more urban locations. And what's different from what we propose, like if you go into Tysons and even some of the areas in Reston, you can see condominium units from 650 square feet to, if you want a big one, it's 1,200 square feet. These units all are over 1,000 square feet. And I think the average is closer to 1,250 square feet. And we also, and some of them go up to 1,700 square feet. So what we found, and we have this information available, is that our buyers are typically downsizers that, can't downsize to 1,000 or 1,200 square feet. They're looking for something bigger. And that's been a real niche for us, and it's been really well received by the market. And we've had tremendous success in all our communities, from Herndon to Reston to Fairfax to Rockville, Vienna. All of them have been really well received because we're just a little bit different than the high-rise condominiums with a lot of with a lot more units. We think the buyers, and part of it's COVID related, prefers a 32-unit building or a 36-unit building, and as opposed to being in a high-rise type building. And so that's the market that we're going after, and we've been very successful attracting. It's just something a little different than what is available out there.
Thank you. I'm more interested, however, in getting more units that are available to people that are a little not at the point where they can afford to get into a purchase, and they're not far enough along in that area. And there's a lot of people in that we need to continue to serve. Now, you can argue that there's other places in Reston, but I think this would be a mix in this long list of different housing options. And I'd like that if you don't do that, then that's unfortunate. That maybe even trying it to mix in with your other good arguments might be a consideration. The other point is, I think we keep hearing this problem that developers are seeming to have with respect to getting Dominion to commit to getting in a position when these buildings are completed, where they could service the electric car. And my guess is, and I'd be happy to get your feedback, but I think this is something that someone above you, like the county, has got to negotiate. If we're going to be, Bill Penniman had made great points continuously, and it just doesn't make any sense. I live in a cluster that's 50, 60 years old, and we're fighting about trying to get that added, and those same issues are coming up. So I'd like you to consider that. Thank you.
We're happy to work with the county, and I mean, we've already been petitioning Dominion, and to not with very much success, but certainly with the county helping us. I had on our Vienna Metro site, it came up, and we got our whole construction team involved in it, and unfortunately weren't able to change the way they calculate it. But I do see that changing over time, and a little pressure from the county would be certainly, helpful to that process.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Richard. Let's go to John and then to Katie.
Good evening, John Coppola here. Brian, I thought you did a great job on the presentation and very thorough, so nice job there. And I do agree with the comments of the folks on the committee. A lot of great comments and questions, and agree with Tammy. The architecture looks great and is a little different, so that's nice. I just have one question at this time. Can you walk us through, if you can, the stormwater management and what the plan was for that? And I know that William already spoke a little bit about green roofs, and I understand that, but just wondering about what the plan was.
It's currently all proposed to be underground stormwater management at this time. And if you look at that, with that park area, I know there's a pretty big facility there that's programmed, but more of that will come during the final engineering, but that's what's contemplated at this time.
Okay, thank you, David. No further comments.
Thanks, John. Katie.
Hey, thanks. I just had a couple questions. So it looks like you have that one condo building and a set of the townhomes that are on their own kind of pipe stem off of Reston Station. Is that true? Is it not connected to the rest of the neighborhood?
The park space is connected, but from a vehicular standpoint, it's not connected. That's right.
Okay. And then I know we talked about it, but I think what about 400 people would be living in this neighborhood? I definitely don't think the green space is adequate. It's kind of sporadic throughout the neighborhood. I think it needs to be maybe like one, even if you just have like one larger green space, that it would be more usable for the people that live there. On the garages, how large are those going to be? Because obviously Reston, Northern Virginia in general, there's bike paths every which way. And is there going to be room for somebody to put like a bike in front of their car and their trash can and their car in the garage?
Yeah, we'll confirm that. We've had a number of applicants have had scrutiny of the sizes of the garages over the last handful of years. And so I'm pretty sure that our garages will meet those requirements, but we will confirm that for you, and we will give you specific dimensions at the next. But I know that's been a hot topic, and we've been involved in a number of conversations about that in terms of the trash cans and recycle bins and the bike and the car and having everything fit. So we'll show you the dimensions and we can give it to you.
I definitely don't, there does not seem to be enough trees, and it appears to be way too close to Sunset Hills, that side, those homes. And I kind of think 1.5 spaces, I don't know if that's even enough, because people also have guests over. And again, I mean, I don't know, but maybe if your garage spaces are truly big enough to where you can put all your stuff plus a car in the garage, maybe that wouldn't be a problem. Then what elementary schools is this neighborhood feeding to? Do you know?
I do not. I assume it was Sunrise Valley, but I will check for you.
Okay, that was all I had. Thank you so very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Listen, I see a couple other hands up. I'm not sure if they're repeats or not, but let me just get a few comments in here. And we do have this other application tonight. But Brian, I did want to have a couple of comments, and it's going to reiterate a few of the members' points. The lack of tree cover, I think, is significant. It's really borderline with the tree canopy right now. We've heard a couple comments about, the Sunset Hills Road streetscape, for example, is kind of non-existent. There's overhead power lines there, but this thing is just butt up right against that overhead power line. And we're really trying to make a concerted effort on all the streetscapes to have a landscape and amenity panel, something that's real. And this site doesn't seem to provide that. And then the private streets, the streetscapes are very lacking. And so this is a big thing for Commissioner Carter. And so I would highly recommend that you all kind of get back and look at that plan very carefully. Number one, we're in Reston, so this isn't like a Vienna Metro West type of deal. This is Reston. We need trees, we need landscaping, and I think you've heard that now from a number of people. I'm also very concerned that a lot of the landscaping is shown over top of that underground stormwater management facility, that I don't think you're allowed to do that. And so I think you're going to find that some of that landscaping actually has to go away on some of those interior private streets. So you all have to take a real hard look at that. So Matt brought up a really good point about the air conditioning units. We're seeing, as an afterthought, a lot of these air conditioning units being placed in the driveway side of units, and it's just taking up a lot of room. It's looking unsightly, a lot of wires just sticking out and pipes coming every which way. And we're going to have to look at that very carefully as a committee, because you, as you know, you are not subject to the DRB in this location unless you agree to that. And you may find us in your architectural review, and that's going to be something we're going to scrutinize. And so we're going to need to see that level of detail to really iron that out, to really know what is happening to those air conditioning units and other utilitarian type things, before we know the type of plan that we're really getting. So I'm going to give you more comments in writing. Last comment I'll make is, I'm noticing that the garage spaces under the condominium, some of them are tandem spaces. And so the plans are very hard to read in terms of that level of information. So I encourage you all to, show that a little bit more detail and a little bit better. But, those tandem spaces, that gets a little tricky for, being compliant with a certain ratio of parking spaces and truly having them be accessible spaces to the people that need them.
Just to answer some of those questions real quickly, so as of right now, the tandem spaces, the inside of the 2 tandem spaces is not being counted for any of the parking requirements, just to put that out there as the plan is currently structured. But there are tandem spaces that are available in the garages. With respect to the tree canopy overall and the street trees and the setback along Sunset Hills Road, understood. We'll obviously take another look at that. I think we're going to be looking at the design, perhaps in a bit of a more holistic way with respect to the open spaces. We certainly appreciate everybody's comments and feedback. With respect to, where we are in the process, I think someone said, this is a decent start, and we'd like to think so. And we put a lot of thought into this plan, but we recognize it's not perfect. And so we are very early in the process. All this feedback is really helpful and things that we need to focus on. So we'll certainly come back with additional information and more detail on all the questions that you guys have asked us tonight.
Thanks, Brian. And unless anybody has a real burning desire to ask a question, can you maybe consider putting that in the written comments that we talked about earlier? Because we do have this application tonight.
Rob, just really fast, because we talked so much about the EV charging. But there was one point I wasn't clear on. For the 2/2 garages, are those going to be EV ready?
They are not planned to be EV ready. There will be some surface spaces that will have EV charging stations, similar to what we did at Lofts 1. There'll be community charging stations.
And are you held back by Dominion? Is that the reason, or what's the reason that you aren't considering the garage spaces for EV?
Typically, we see the demand more in the condo building than in the condominium flat building than the 2/2s.
Okay, I think I can speak for a few people. We'd like you to reconsider that with these.
We will take it under advisement.
All right, Tammy, let's give you the last word, but please make it brief.
Tammy, you're on mute.
Been doing a whole series of webinars on sustainability for the Reston Comprehensive Plan, of which you're hoping to use that draft for this project. And without question, developments that feature sustainable things like purple roofs and very efficient HVAC, you get more than your money back. People are aware of it, especially if you're going to be buying these units, the consumer is very sophisticated. The other thing is I don't see any guest parking in this development. You have to have that for service people. I think John Carter might have a question. Thank you.
All right, so that's where I was going next. Commissioner Carter, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I do, and I won't go back over the design issues, but a lot of those are very good. Brian, the staff is coming out with their comments on the comp plan. And one of the comments is they're adamantly opposed to residential in this area. So we need to work through that. And the other aspect is the grid of streets for this. They have a different location for that flyover, the crossover of South Lakes. So it's farther to the west. It kind of goes into the middle of your project, I think. So I would suggest working through that. And I don't know who's going to prevail in this, but these are both significant issues for you.
I appreciate that. Those are significant issues. And if they are changing the alignment of the flyover, that's a major change from what's currently in the comp plan. So we'll certainly have to talk with them about it, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
And we're happy, by the way, we're also happy to chat with you and with everyone else about the design aspects of the site.
Yes.
So it's not just the flyover. I understand that you have design comments, and we're happy to hear those in more detail as well.
But it's the residential, whether residential is going to be permitted or not. You got the staff pretty much against this.
Well, we think it makes a ton of sense for residential, as I described earlier. It's frankly not a great location for new office space. I don't think that recommendation that's currently in the comp plan is going to come to fruition anytime soon. And the existing buildings, some of which are not in great condition, will continue to not be in great condition, and I don't think are doing any benefit for the county as a whole. But yeah, we're happy to talk about that in more detail.
Okay.
Okay, I'm trying to monitor the chat to see if there's anybody from the public that would like to have a comment or speak, but I don't see anybody there. Please mention something in the chat if you are or have a question from the public, but not seeing any. I think that's it for you, Brian, for this application. I do appreciate you all presenting tonight and appreciate you all giving us the materials ahead of time and as much information as you did provide.
We appreciate the comments, and like I said, we'll take everything under advisement and get back to y'all with some additional information or some other alternative layouts. But we do appreciate everybody's time, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you, David. All right, so now we're going to transition to the next application, which is the Commerce Metro Center. Once again, this is also the first time that this new application at Commerce Metro Center is coming before us tonight. And additionally, we did receive the questionnaire, the statement of justification, and a set of plans. And once again, I'll just remind everybody that, again, both of these applications are quite detailed. I think it's good for us to also submit written comments in advance and beyond just tonight's discussion. I think it will be helpful to the applicant to really get a good sense of where the committee is. So with that, Brian, do you have a presentation?
Of course I do. I do indeed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am just in the midst of a transition here to pull that up, and I will do that in just a minute. And this presentation, I will have a number of folks joining me in giving the presentation. So let me start it here, make sure everybody can see it. All right. Can everybody see this? Are we good?
It's good.
That's good.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you again for being here. As you know, I'm Brian Winterhalter with DLA. And for this application for the Commerce Metro Center site, I'm joined by John Harrison and Chris Burr at Comstock, and by our team here, including AECom, Land Design, Jan, Callison, RTKL, and Kimley Horn. I'm not going to introduce our full team. There are quite a lot of folks on the line here, but I will say if each person, as we go through the presentation, could introduce yourself and your firm as we go through, that would be much appreciated. So the existing site, you probably know it very well. It is directly south of the Wheelie Reston East Metro Station. It is referred to as the Commerce Metro Center property. It was previously owned by Vornado, who proposed and obtained approval for a re-entitlement of that plan in accordance with the comprehensive plan recommendations for higher intensity mixed use development at the transit station area. Here you see in this exhibit some of the surrounding developments, which all of you know quite well. To zoom out a little bit, you see here the site highlighted in the pink outline, and then south of Sunrise Valley Drive, there are a number of cluster associations. I'm not going to read all of them individually, but we will reach out and have reached out to all of these associations as part of our community engagement effort. We've also reached out to the Save Our Sunrise group, and that outreach is ongoing. We have invited all of the folks on this image to the meeting tonight. With the exception of the Harborside Cluster Association, because the person who I had his contact info for has moved on, no longer lives in Harborside, and I am trying to find another contact. So if anyone has a contact at Harborside and could please pass that along, I would certainly appreciate it. The site is here. It's in the transit station mixed use area, which, as you probably already know, recommends a mix of 50% residential, 50% non-residential. The FAR recommendation is up to a 2.5 FAR under the comprehensive plan. And it's not just this site. So as you also already know, the Comstock folks have done a tremendous job on the north side of the metro station with the Reston Station development, and are proceeding with the Reston Station Promenade development as well. And we really think of this as a connected overall metro station area. So we're contemplating these sites with additional pedestrian connections, walkability, integration of the proposed development into the fabric of the emerging neighborhood here at Wheelie, and wanted to highlight that this is not intended to be Commerce Metro Center in isolation, but as part of the larger fabric of the overall metro station area. So as I mentioned, Vornado previously obtained approval for development. That was in December of 2016. You're familiar with this plan. There is an office building, a hotel building, 2 residential buildings along Wheelie Avenue, and there are a number of existing buildings that were referred to as the Commerce Executive Buildings that were maintained as part of the Vornado plan. This is just the numbers. It's approximately 1.5 million square feet of development in the approved entitlements at roughly a 2.46 FAR. And so what did we see and what did the Comstock team see when they acquired this property and started thinking about how they could potentially enhance the site and make improvements to the existing condition and also the approved entitlements that Vornado obtained. So in looking at the site, there are some substantial changes that we would like to make, which we will talk with you about in more detail, particularly the design team folks. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about specifically, and I think is the biggest driver of the design changes that you will see, and the biggest challenge to the site is the topography. As many of you are probably already familiar with, the site is a little bit kind of in a bowl. As it goes lower, the high points are at the corners at Wheelie Avenue, the intersection with Wheelie and Sunrise Valley Drive, farther along the west on Sunrise Valley Drive. And then at the actual metro station bridge is another high point, but the lowest points on the site are right next to the metro station. So you essentially have to go into the site and you go down and then you go farther down and then you have to go back up to get to the metro station. And we really think that that topography is challenging for having a pleasant, walkable pedestrian environment and something that is really amenable to creating gathering spaces where people want to be. There are challenge connections throughout the site. You see kind of the zigzag sawtooth plan here. There aren't a lot of direct sight lines. There aren't a lot of direct paths for pedestrians, or in some cases for vehicular circulation for that matter as well. And again, there is a challenge in the way that the Vornado entitlements were structured in terms of how to easily and conveniently access the metro station from outside of the site. So the other thing that we noted in putting a lot of thought and effort into how these existing entitlements could potentially be improved upon, and one of the things that was apparent as we were all studying the plans in detail was the fact that there are a lot of conflicts in the existing plans between the vehicular movements, particularly with respect to garage entries, loading areas, and those sorts of things, and pedestrian circulation. And they're just, it's not something that's necessarily readily apparent from looking at the plan kind of at the surface. But when you dig into it, it's something that our team felt was a real hindrance to creating the type of walkable, pedestrian-friendly environment we really want to have on this site. And so how do we make the plan better? And you don't want to hear from me, the land use lawyer, about how you make the plan better. You want to hear from the design team about how you make the plan better. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan at AECom, and I will keep moving the slide. So Ryan, when you're ready, just say next.
All right, thanks, Brian. Hello, good to be with you, everyone. I'm Ryan Bauma, a principal with AECom, and we did have some challenges to work with stepping forward to make that plan better, as Brian's highlighted. So if we head on to the next slide. The first thing that we saw was that Building 3, which exists today, the previous plan had to do a lot to work around it, and the spaces left over weren't ideal for developing great buildings or great public spaces. And it was really contributing to the fractured circulation that the previous plan had. And so it is important to note that this building is leased and generates significant revenue. But when we look at what it takes to create or to maximize the potential of the experience at this place for residents, employees, and visitors, we wanted to look at what if that building went away in order to make room for a better plan. Go on to the next. And what would that also mean to creating more continuous, intuitive vehicular circulation from Wheelie westward to Commerce Park Drive and the intersection with Centennial Park Drive? We thought there could be a really strong benefit to consider in making that east-west connection happen, likely from a right-in, right-out kind of access point off of and to Wheelie Avenue westward. And then the other significant consideration is that then allows us to actually change the grade of that eastern portion of the site, bringing it all up to a consistent grade with the Metro Bridge, making it so it's only just a few feet difference, an imperceptible difference between the intersection of Sunrise and Wheelie and that Metro Bridge. So with that new circulation and with that new plane that we could develop public space and building entrances off of, we thought that could take a significant step towards a much better plan for this site that would benefit not only the people that would live and work here, but also the surrounding community and their connections to the metro. And so this diagram here just highlights some of the fundamental ideas of the master plan. There's not a lot of detail here. You'll see more of that shortly. But when we start to think about the main connections we wanted to make, there's that east-west vehicular and pedestrian access we talked about. There's that major connection running north-south from the Metro Bridge southward towards Sunrise Valley Drive and those adjoining communities. There's that access off of Centennial Park. And what that starts to do is set up a more regular walkable series of blocks that can organize the land use as well, specifically with residential and ground floor retail closer to Sunrise Valley Drive in concert with the uses found across the street there. And then as you get closer to the Dulles Toll Road, that's where we see the office and the hotel, even more retail, that type of thing happening. And then there's opportunities farther west one day at another application to imagine how the development can continue and fill in with other types of mixed use development. So again, a big step towards intuitive, easy to walk, easy connect to blocks that set up potential westward connections to adjoining development. And this diagram highlights the fundamental massing and organization of the land uses being proposed. So right there at the corner of Sunrise and Wheelie, we see that's the residential component that's being put forward in two structures that are separated by a significant pedestrian corridor that Joe will talk about more about here in a minute. You can see existing Commerce 4, 5, and 6 running east and west, and then wrapped around them and between them in some ways, you see 3 new office buildings and the hotel located closer to the metro entrance. The other considerations here are actually a renovation in addition to the lower floors of Commerce 4 along the eastern edge there to provide a retail pavilion that can embrace and activate the public space between that and One Commerce. And then there's also a standalone childcare center that's an important component of keeping some existing tenants that are on the site today, having a place for them to move to so that there can be a continuous amenity for employees on the site. So again, stepping up also in volume and mass as we approach the toll road so that the more southern buildings, which are much lower in height, can actually act like a buffer to the adjoining community in terms of the mass and scale. So again, trying to have that much more regular and easily walkable series of blocks that organize the land use plan. And here are some of the fundamental numbers comparing the Vornado previous approvals and to the Comstock recommendations. And then the variance is discussed as well. And it's important to note that a lot of the fundamentals have changed as well, and that there is more land involved in this application, significantly about 4.3 more acres that comes from acquisitions that have been made, such as the Building 6 property to the west and the bank property along Sunrise. So that's one of the reasons these numbers are so much different, is there is more land that also helps facilitate that better plan. And there are also considerations for CMC3 going away and the child care center and that sort of thing. So overall, the net effect is about an additional 1 million square feet in development, and that additional acreage and a higher FAR to make the most of the transit-oriented potential of the site. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about the kinds of connectivity that make this all possible.
Right. Hey everyone, Joe Grandi, landscape architect and principal of land design. So one of the main drivers for the master plan is the urban park experience. And like Ryan had talked about before, about bringing the grade up to create a consistent kind of public realm. The idea with the master plan for the park space is that when you step off a metro, you're stepping into a park. Now that park, and we go to the next slide, is part of a connected park network that moves you through the neighborhood. Now that park network is something that guides people to your office, your hotel, where you live, where you want to grab a bite to eat. That idea that you can come into the space and you're walking through a park to get to these places. To add on to that, if we can go to the next slide, we took care, the design team really honed in on making sure that the park spaces are accompanied by activated retail experiences as well. The two kind of feed off each other to create this vibrant public realm and experience for people, not only coming from Metro, but also coming from the south. So we have this connectivity that goes from Sunrise Valley up to the Metro and down, but then also goes east and west. And gets you to the office spaces as well. Now we're going to take a walk real quickly of what it might feel like to come off the metro and kind of move into the heart of the project, into the kind of signature open space here in the middle. So we can go to the next slide. So this is what you would see as you come through the portal. You see the development, you see landscape items that pull you into the site, and we can keep going. So it pulls you to the east. You start to get glimpses of the buildings in the distance, but also landscape elements that guide you and find places of respite, places of activity along this kind of guiding tour through. And we go to the next slide. Also through here, key features with placemaking, focal elements that help reinforce that movement and where energy is occurring. Let me go to the next one. Like this image here, having architectural features that are that focal element, that placemaking piece that kind of guide you, welcome you into the next episodic piece of the park spaces. And then go to the next. This view kind of looks back, so the metro's in the distance. You can see that reddish column in the background. So the idea here too is that we are, with design elements, really making the pedestrian activity first. The cars take a second to the pedestrian movement with how we're hoping to treat the pavement and so forth. Next slide. And then also too, you can see here that we're making that visual connection down to Sunrise Valley, into the park spaces between the two residential buildings here. And then next slide. And yeah, as we start to get more to the residential piece, we still have that connection, that visual connection, but then the level of energy starts to form itself more into a recreation free play type area. And if we can go to the next one. And then two here, having that kind of signature space that is a gathering spot activated with retail, and a place that people can gather, and can be flexible and transformative as well. And then Ryan, if you want to take it from here on the pedestrian circulation.
Certainly. So again, zooming in, getting a little bit more detailed here. Again, there was that emphasis in creating the primary pedestrian corridors to come north-south from Sunrise Valley across towards the metro entrance, and to also pull people from the west closer to buildings 4 and 5. Also having that primary circulation along Wheelie Avenue to bring people in. The secondary pedestrian corridors are really focused on getting people from the primary area corridors to those building entrances. So you'll see that where the primary entrances to each building, that's where the secondary corridors connect, usually on both sides of a street or as spurs off of that main pedestrian flow. And then the tertiary pedestrian corridors, a lot of those follow more on the western portion of the site, in connecting between existing buildings and some of the future garages. The blue arrows are helpful to note as well. These are where the entry points are to either the garage or loading and service access to the existing and proposed buildings. And we really wanted to make sure that our primary and to the greatest extent possible, our secondary pedestrian corridors didn't have to intersect with those vehicular access points. And so that only happens where it absolutely has to. So you'll notice that in most cases, there's very little conflict between the routes that vehicles would take to get to those buildings and the primary and secondary circulation for pedestrians. We can go on to the next. And so again, kind of zooming out, it's also important to note how that primary network connects southward to the existing communities on the along Sunrise Valley, to the east to the Campus Commons development and further, and to the west, especially connecting to those future streets, some of which have been planned, others to be planned in the future, but setting up that westward connection to the future Soapstone Drive crossing of the Dulles Toll Road. So we do understand, though, as you're bringing more of those people closer and closer to the metro, we're going to need a stronger network and greater intuitive options for people to connect. And so we see there being significant improvements over the current conditions, certainly, where existing garages and things like that block the path to metro, but certainly an improvement over the previous approval that was just a little too circuitous. And, it's also important to be planning for the bicycle connectivity as well. So the faint red lines here, that's that pedestrian network again, but the different purple lines highlight a few key ideas for bicycle access. So first and foremost, there would be that multi-use trail connecting along Sunrise Valley Drive. And then off of that, there would be dedicated on-street bike lanes along Centennial Park, along Wheelie Ave and along the extension of Commerce Park Drive that comes east-west through the eastern portion of the site. So then we'd have that bicycle access connecting in that one block farther. That would allow then bicycles to connect to bicycle parking that would be associated with each structure in the garage to service the development here or to connect to Metro. And then this diagram is a little bit more of an explanation of the vehicular circulation approaches. You can certainly see that along Wheelie and Sunrise is where the vehicles will be coming from, and how they would connect through the site. It's important to note we're trying to make the best use of that frontage road that runs along the Dulles Toll Road and connects to the west, in providing access to the main garage, which you can kind of see a faint purple outline here that highlights the extent of the below grade multi-story garage that does two things. It stores the vehicles that are needed for the development, but it also helps establish that new grade for the public space system that Joe mentioned. And again, there's several different access points to it, but they've been located to minimize conflicts with the pedestrian system. So I think our friends from Kinley Horn, we're going to talk mostly about the traffic considerations. Sarah, have you been able to get access as a panelist?
Brian, I believe Sarah and Lauren have been able to get in. Are you able to give them access?
I am not. I think Lisa needs to give them access.
Yeah.
Perhaps Rob
Lisa,
could give them access.
I just received access. This is Sarah Knox.
Oh, hello, Sarah.
Go ahead.
All right, let me see if I can get my video up and running. Okay, so as you just heard, we are design. You know what? I should introduce myself first. Sarah Knox. I am with Kinley Horn, and I am the transportation engineer on this site. So thank you for having me, and thank you for making me a panelist. As you heard, we're designing the site very intentionally for the mobility and access for all modes of transportation, consistent with the county and VDOT processes. The project team is developing a traffic impact analysis to assess the safety and operations of the site access and the surrounding transportation network. The analysis will provide prioritization for mobility of all of our users, trains, vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, and this will be done in and around the transit-oriented development site, and will present mitigation measures as necessary to offset any projected impacts. The study is still under development, and results will be reported at a later date. The project also strives to balance the travel and parking demands of its current and future tenants with the intention to transform the site into a more multimodal development. The proposed parking capacity will be constructed at ratios consistent with the county's comprehensive plan goals and at ratios for this transit station area. Parking will also be shared amongst the multiple user groups on site, taking advantage of the varying demands each land use will have over the course of the day. And multiple ingress and egress points are provided to distribute vehicles throughout the site. All right, and then I will pass it back over to Joe.
Okay, and then we also have a series of environmental improvements that we're going to walk through right now. So plan, we have extensive green roof areas. We can go through these pretty quick. The next one looks at where we're planning for intensive green roof. The next is bioretention areas, and then stormwater management vaults. And then lastly, we are planting 340 trees on the site with this application. So this is a composite plan of all those environmental improvements. And our friends at Kinley Horn again have some, wow, Lauren, you're upside down, to go over some of the more environmental pieces here.
I am not sure why I'm upside down, so I will not share my video right now. I will just go ahead and speak on behalf of Kimley Horn and our site civil team. My name is Lauren Schaefer. I'm a project manager with Kimley Horn and working with the overall design team here. As Joe had mentioned, we're proposing a combination of various best management strategies to meet the Fairfax County quantity and quality requirements and also provide treatment and detention in line with the comprehensive plan. Those strategies are going to consist of the extensive green roof, intensive green roof, various bioretention areas, multiple stormwater management vaults, and a lush planting of new tree spaces as well. This is all going to work cohesively with the planned outdoor urban park and amenity spaces to create a lush and inviting experience that Joe and Ryan were explaining in the slides previously. Next slide, please. So here we are also talking about lead and EV charging in addition to the quantity and quality requirements just on the last slide. These strategies mentioned will also contribute to the lead credits for the project. The project is planning to pursue the LEED Silver for the non-residential areas and LEED for residential credits. EV charging will be incorporated into the development as well and will also contribute to the credits amongst other location and transportation, water efficient, energy commissioning, material optimization, and indoor environmental quality measures to overall meet those LEED goals there. Next slide, please.
Brian, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, just to briefly note that here is an overall image again of the site, and we are going to ask each of the architectural teams to go through some of their specific buildings and the background on the proposed design. And so if they have access to be a panelist, which I hope they do, I will turn it over to the Jan team now.
Oh, I don't have access as a panelist. My name is Daniel Gillen. I am a director at Jan, and for some reason WebEx is not allowing me to show my face. So I got dressed up for this, don't worry. But very happy to be here. Everybody on the team is probably sick of hearing me say this, but I grew up for 21 years in Oakton, Virginia. So this project is very important and very personal as well to me. But we wanted to start with Helmut Jan's sketch, and this is one of the last buildings that he designed before he passed away. And it was designed as a complement to the existing OB1 building across the street, not as a duplicate, but more so as a sibling to create a gateway along the toll road. Next, please. This is a view of the building as you're sort of moving along Wheelie Avenue or turning into Wheelie Avenue. And what we are targeting here is a very high performance building in terms of environmental quality and sophistication, as well as an anchor and a sort of iconic building to sort of hold the corner here. And also, as like I said, the structure is a complement to the OB1 across the street. Next, please. And also what's important to us is a sort of transparent lobby and ground floor level that opens up to the plaza and actually activates the plaza along this edge with retail, dining, as well as the office lobby. Next, please. And as you're working your way around to the southwest corner, you can see that what we've tried to do in designing this building is to not have sort of a dead corner or a back side or a front side. We've really designed it as a way that all of the edges are activated for pedestrian usage to create a very lively and vibrant ground level experience. Thank you.
And do we have the RTKL team on the line?
Yes, good evening. Thanks for letting me join tonight. My name is Mark Fairbrother. I'm a principal with Callison RTKL in the DC office. And I'll talk to you a little bit tonight about the residential building. Here is, you can see the corner of the residential building we call lovingly A. We, just from a contextual standpoint, I want to note that we have on the corner a significant utility vault that extends about 50 or 60 feet into our site on a diagonal. And so working with that was somewhat of a challenge. So if you look at the far right hand side of the residential building and strike a line and align it with the end of that vault, we actually put the residential common corridor on that line and then created a neutral palette composed of punch windows and panels. That's one way for us to ensure that every unit around the building has light and air, adequate light and air. And so using that corner element, that cutout, is like what we see on Connecticut Avenue with many elegant residential buildings that don't just simply go to the corner, but have a foreground of landscape and pedestrian activity and all the accoutrements of residential before you actually hit the front door. So there's a nice little buffer space that's created. So onto that neutral palette is these highlighted areas. The one on the right of the building has a super grid on it, much like the Yon building, not necessarily trying to copy that, but paying a little bit of a nod to it so that it actually has a fit with that building because of its adjacency. And then crowning that element is a significant amount of outdoor balcony space, which will allow the people to actually populate the building and show that from the streetscape. Now, one thing we're examining on that entry piece where we enter directly into the public core of the residential is we're bringing natural light into that corridor, and we're actually examining how we can modulate our massing in the courtyard to allow this to be the window into that courtyard from the exterior of the building. Since our courtyards are fairly restrictive and tight, having this window all the way through the building with morning light pouring into the courtyard is something that we think would be a real advantage to the building. Next slide. Here you can kind of see the corner of the public space going through the two residential buildings. We've actually taken care working with land design to actually make that space work for the programs that adjoin it. So along Sunrise, there is a bit of a push out into the space to create a sort of a perception of a door. And then there's a space that actually adjoins units. And then it widens out here to allow for restaurants and pedestrian activity to populate both sides of the space and really enliven it. We actually designed the building such that the entrance to the lobby is in front of the retail. So there's always the vibrancy of people coming and going, not just from the lobby of the building, but from the retail surrounding it, really pulling that vibe we're trying to create on the streetscape. Next slide. So these buildings aren't identical. One thing we feel is very important so the project looks organic and feels natural is that each building have its own palette. The other building used big scale elements at the entry and to sort of take away the sort of rhythm of balconies and bays. This one actually uses two-story entries in a copperish patterned infill to sort of give it a richness and texture that the other building will be complementary toward. I think that's it. Thank you.
That is it indeed. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our presentation, and we would be happy to answer any questions, of course. As the chairman noted, we are early in the application process. Our application is about to be accepted by Fairfax County, but has not yet been formally accepted. So we do not have any staff comments. We certainly will be back when we do have staff comments and share them with you. We look forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate your team's attendance tonight, and the amount of information is a bit overwhelming in terms there's a lot there to take in. Hey, let me start off with one quick relationship question. The existing Commerce 1 and existing Commerce 2 buildings that are further to the west that were a part of looking at the area comprehensively in some of your all's earlier diagrams, but can you speak to the ownership of those and the fact that it's part of Commerce Center, but yet it's not part of this proposed development, and what the potential is for that? Because as you can imagine, this development, as you've presented tonight, could develop, but then there's also these existing other pieces before you get over to the Lincoln Apartments that are kind of like the hole in the donut.
Sure, and let me pull up a plan that we can speak to with this in front of us, which I will do in just a second.
In the meantime, if committee members have any questions, you're already starting to raise your hands. Very good. Thank you.
Now I have to remember how to share my screen. Let's try this again. Can do this. Okay. So I think you are referring to this building and this building.
Yes.
Yes. So this building is the IGS parcel. It is not included as part of our proposed development. And this building is the Centennial Office Condo building that Pete Scamardo and Centennial Companies developed. And that building has, I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say somewhere between 15 and 20 office condo unit owners, and is also not part of our proposed application. I'm sure we'd be interested in coordinating with those owners if they were interested in coordinating with us, but as of right now, they are not part of our efforts.
Okay. Just as a, looking ahead, I mean, I think we want to make sure that anything that's being done here takes a little bit into account what the future lies for some of those other existing locations. And I know you don't control those, but we're going to be looking at this holistically in a more comprehensive way. But so let me jump into comments. Let me start with Katie.
Yep. Okay. So thank you so much. Very good presentation. I wanted to ask, what do the neighborhoods think about the 16-story hotel across the street? Like, was there any feedback yet? I think I read there was going to be 16 stories.
So to be clear, we have asked to meet with all of the neighbors. Those requests were relatively recent. We invited everyone to come to this meeting or to log on to see this meeting to get the initial overview, and we're planning to meet with folks to follow up on this discussion. So we haven't gotten any specific feedback from any of the neighborhood groups. The two most immediate adjacent neighborhood associations, Weathersfield and Hampton Meadows, we are likely going to be meeting in June with each of those two groups. We're trying to settle on dates, but we don't have any specific feedback yet.
Okay, I would just be, I think the people that are going to be directly affected, I would think would have a, some sort of, input. And my other question was on the green space. Do you know, like, what's the break? Is it, I know on the other application we looked at, and this is totally different, it was kind of more sporadic, kind of spread out, even though I know there was like 1.5 acres or whatever it was. What's the green space breakdown for this location? Are there larger green spaces, like 1 or 2, or I saw it was kind of sporadic, but are they larger green spaces?
Well, so I will turn it over to Joe with land design to answer that question, but in general, they are larger spaces and they are more consolidated than in the previous application. But Joe, if you want to provide some more detail on that.
Yeah, so the idea is that they're connected. They are larger. Well, I don't want to compare because I don't know that application, but I would say they're probably larger. With our current program, I think the recommendation for urban park space is about 1.84 acres, and we're providing 2.03 acres. So we are, exceeding that recommendation here, and have a series of spaces that have different activity in them and so forth.
Okay, that was all.
They're connected.
Thank you, Katie. David Vanel and/or Sue.
Thanks, Rob. I just a couple things. One comment about clearly you folks have done a lot of thinking about how to lay this site out, and thankfully improved dramatically on the Vornado site design. So I'm impressed with that. I'm impressed with what you've done with the buildings and the facades, at least the artist rendering of them makes things look interesting, integrating the open space and with the retail space, with the residential space, making things inviting coming off of the train. This, I think, may be the only 3.0 and plus FAR site. Is that correct? In the area?
So at Wheelie, the north side and at Reston Town Center, there are higher FARs. And again, to be clear, the FAR recommended in the comprehensive plan is up to a 2.5. And as described in our application materials, we're proposing bonus density for the mid-block road, the removal of the Commerce Metro Center 3 existing office building. And also there is bonus density for workforce housing that we are going to be providing as part of the project as well. So when you add all of that together, the density proposed for the site is the 3.2 FAR.
And so you got to my question, which is, where are you headed toward percentage of workforce housing? You're at 3 FAR, so that, I think, according to the existing chart, gives you 16%, and you can go to 20. And my understanding from talking with staff, they're proposing that would be the line well, maybe that's not quite the way to say it, but I guess what I'm asking you is, are you trying to go above your 16%?
No, we are proposing bonus density under the comp plan provisions that support the bonus density based on the mid-block road and the removal of the CMC 3 office building at 0.5 FAR for that, as well as parcel consolidation with the acquisition of the additional CMC 6 building and the United Bank parcel, which we didn't talk about in detail in our presentation, but since acquiring the property that was subject to the Vornado entitlements, Comstock also acquired 2 additional properties to bring this entire consolidation together. And then for bonus density purposes with respect to the workforce dwelling units, we are at 16% in our assumptions right now. Yes, correct. For the current policy as it exists right now, which we know there's discussions that policy may be modified, and we're watching that. But we are assuming 16% as of right now based on the current policy.
And for sale, rental, both?
We haven't talked much about for sale or rental. I'll ask John or Chris if they want to jump in, but my assumption is that the current thinking is probably rental.
For right now, it's entirely a apartment use, so rental.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, David. Let me go to Mike Jennings, then Michelle, and then Matt.
Thanks, Rob. In general, I think this development looks great, and I think it would be pretty neat once it got done. I like a lot of things about it at this level that we're being presented. But there's 2 things I just want to comment in. One is the streetscape along Wheelie looks a little thin to me, especially as you get in northwards a little bit. I'm sensitive to, a lot of us on the committee have commented about, if you go down Sunrise Valley near what used to be an A+ station and now is basically in front of the Popeyes. We don't want any more streetscapes like that. So be sure. I mean, I see the measurements you have on it, and one has 2 rows of trees and the other one only has 1 row of tree. I hope that they both get 2 rows of trees, and you have a little sort of potential drop-off area in front of the office building. And I'm not certain that that's the kind of streetscape we want to be seeing. So that's one thing. The second thing is a question. Are we back to just a crosswalk across Wheelie Avenue right at the toll road exit?
No, not necessarily.
Rather than, I don't know where that work group ended up, but a bridge or whatever.
Yeah. So a couple things. The recommendation from the work group was to not support any of the pedestrian bridges, and there was a desire for an underpass, if possible, and if feasible from a cost standpoint. And I don't want to, there may be folks, I think there are folks on P&Z, I'm sure there are folks on P&Z who are part of that work group, so I don't want to speak for anybody. But in general, the recommendations were to not support the bridges, to support the option for an underpass, and to see if there were other improvements that could be made to the existing configuration of Wheelie Avenue that would potentially involve some combination of wider streetscapes or narrower road lanes or a narrower cross section for the road in general that would make a crossing more pedestrian friendly than previously planned. The other piece related to that, which you all may be aware of already, is the county part of resulting in part, I should say, from the Wheelie pedestrian bridge, crossing study group that was part of the Campus Commons application per those proffers. The county is contemplating, and as far as we understand, is very interested in moving forward, sooner rather than later, as we've heard it from Supervisor Alcorn, with a larger study of the character of Wheelie Avenue from Sunset Hills Road on the north to Sunrise Valley Drive on the south. And so I think it's probably fortuitous timing that we are in with this application at the time. And if the county wants to move forward with that study, we'd certainly be happy to coordinate in that effort. The last thing I'll say with respect to your comment about the drop off on Wheelie. So one of the things that we really wanted to do, and we've put a lot of thought into it, and there remains to be seen how viable that is, because we've heard, not positive things from all the transportation folks, perhaps not surprisingly. But one of the things that we really are focused on with this proposal is to have the development face Wheelie, to have lobby space for the office building that engages with Wheelie. And we don't want Wheelie to be just kind of a river of cars and a barrier. We really want the development to be facing outward as much as kind of the inward focused areas around the plaza and the outdoor dining and all those areas. So that's part of why that is there. And part of what the thought process was to go into that. Obviously that's subject to a lot of discussion and potential refinement, but wanted to give you that background in terms of our design philosophy.
Yep, helps. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, thanks,
Mike. Michelle.
Hi. Yeah. Well, first, I think, speaking as a resident near this, it's frustrating because, Brian, when we met with you just a little bit ago, we said what we're hoping to see from you is real community engagement and to see a plan that reflects that engagement. So it is a little upsetting because you've mentioned that this is a gateway, and it's south of Reston's gateway to the metro, and yet this really does not reflect that, and does not reflect how the neighbors who are currently using the metro quite regularly, or were before COVID, are really going to be able to get there. In particular, the lack of a kiss and ride, I think, is really problematic. But you have to also remember that this is right now our only way to also get to North Reston as pedestrians. And with both that mid-block street that, I hear that you're seeking bonus density for, but that's very problematic. That mid-block road and then also the drop-offs make it so that doesn't really seem like it's an area that pedestrians would be comfortable in. So that's more of a comment, but I would like to request that your community engagement be more than just presenting your plans and actual engagement, because you really have a monopoly on the metro there, but it is the entire community need to be able to use that. So I don't think that this reflects that at all. Can you talk about, you're moving the child care facility way off to the edge over there. What is your timeline for moving them? How's that going to work?
So I will defer to Chris on the discussions about moving the childcare facility. But to address your first comment, understood. We are happy to meet with you. We would like to meet with you and your association, the Save Our Sunrise group, or whoever all you'd like us to meet with. We're happy to come and sit down with you. And we want to share our thoughts in more detail about how we came up with our proposed design and what was important to us in doing that and the improvements that we think we can make to the existing entitlements. But we certainly want the overall plan to be pedestrian friendly. We want it to be well integrated into the neighborhood. We want it to be accessible for you and all of your neighbors. And we certainly want you to have a convenient path to the metro station through the site. So if you have thoughts about that, we're happy to talk about that with you. And so we definitely want to do that.
That's great, but as we told you, I'm not your conduit to the community. You do have to reach out. So you need to do some direct outreach, to the folks also. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We are. I mean, we're reaching out to each of the associations. So we've asked to have meetings with all of them.
Mm-hmm. And can you answer, is there a kiss and ride planned? Because I didn't see it in the plans.
So there is not a kiss and ride currently in the plan. There has been discussion about the potential reconfiguration of the bus bay area that's on the north side of the property at the metro station area, and whether and how the buses and kiss and ride would operate at the property. But we haven't kind of finalized any of those plans.
Okay. And then for your clarification, as you remember from Campus Commons, there are a number of homes that are not part of clusters. So I assume you still have those addresses and can reach out again, correct?
Yes, we would be happy to do that.
I think that would be part of any community engagement, especially since some of those homes are directly across the street from you. Can you go over the childcare facility and when you're moving that? And how that's
I'll
going to
turn
work?
it over to Chris to answer the childcare timing.
Yes, yeah, so I'm Chris Berg. I'm the development manager with Comstock for this project. So the daycare right now, it's Bright Horizons. They're located in CMC 4.
Can't hear you, Chris. Turn it up.
Can you hear me now?
You're very faint. Am I the only one with this problem?
It's a little quiet.
It's hard to hear. It's like you're whispering.
Just speak up, Chris.
All right. Is this a bit better?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Lean in here. So the daycare is currently located in CMC 4 on the ground level, with their playground area actually on the roof of the garage behind it on the toll road there. So as part of this redevelopment plan, we would, at the very first phase, they'd be the kind of first thing under construction, build them a standalone daycare facility with an at-grade playground outdoor area, so that we could move them out of CMC 4 and into their own facility, so that they're not mixing kind of the child care aspect of their program with an office and with active construction, but we can also give them a better outdoor playground facility. So that would be part of the kind of 1A of phase 1 in the development.
You say better, but you're asking for a variance to provide less than the county requires.
So better in the sense that right now their outdoor play area is on top of the roof.
Right, but why are you asking to provide less than the county requires for children?
Because we are trying to accommodate the relocation of the child care facility to a better facility with at-grade outdoor space that is in a somewhat constrained area of the site.
And there's no more, you simply, you can't meet county standards there for this facility. It's a rather expensive childcare facility.
Well, in terms of size as well, so we're actually keeping the sizes the same as what they currently have. So currently they have 7,000 square foot outdoor space, which would be the same as what we'd propose, and they've got 12,000 square feet of indoor space. So their requirement for us is to meet their current condition. But they would love for their current, the improvement to their current condition is that they no longer have to take an elevator to the top of a garage to take their kids out to play. It would be, right out their front door at grade with real grass and trees.
You are also asking to be closer to the Dulles Toll Road than the county would normally allow for a childcare facility. Is this closer than they are now?
The outdoor space would actually be further away than it is now. Right now, it's on the roof of the garage on the toll road. So that part would be further away. And instead of being up in the air with a view of the toll road, it would be at grade south of the building. So that's a buffer. Plus, there'd be a sound barrier built along the toll road along that wall. So in both cases, it would be an improvement in terms of toll road exposure.
And we're hearing from you though, right? Correct, that you will not be doing construction while the children are still in the current facility. So they won't be subjected to construction dust or anything while they're outside.
We haven't gotten into the complete kind of coordination of the construction timeline. The goal would certainly be to move them out as early in the process as possible, especially since their front door is at the construction site. So that's just a reality of the coordination that we would need to do. So they are number one in our timeline in terms of trying to get them occupied.
Okay. Speaking of children, for your residential area, there's no play areas. Where are the kids going to play?
So with that, we're looking through, and I'll defer to Joe a bit on this one, but in our large public park spaces, we're going to start exploring exactly what kind of program is going to go in there. I would say that's kind of next steps in our design.
Well, in part of your application, you even say that, there's adjacent park or, park space that could be used for recreation. But that adjacent park space is all owned either by clusters or RA. So are you also relying on, what was that from?
I don't think we're meant to be referring to off-site park space, if that's what you mean, but we'll look at that and correct that if necessary.
You say the residents of the two buildings will benefit from the abundance of parks and open space located within walking distance. You're pretty far from a grocery store. What is your plan to feed people here? It's over a mile walking distance from a grocery store.
People will probably drive to the grocery store.
This is supposed to be one of the areas in particular that we're going to be limiting car trips as much as possible. And they're not going to be able to walk to get fresh food. It seems to present a serious problem here. And any plans to limit car trips?
Brian, do you want me to tackle this?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this is John Harrison. I'm the Senior Vice President of Development and Construction here at Comstock. We have a pretty active leasing group in our company that does a lot of retail leasing and is working on leasing, frankly, the Reston Station, Reston Row project that's just on the north side of the toll road. We've had conversations with grocers about that site, as well as other options in the market. And right now, candidly, with the lack of growth in rooftops and the pending opening of Wegmans, a commitment to deliver you a grocery store in this area is just not possible.
I just think that you can't meet the goals of this area. If
Well,
people have to do something as basic as getting food, they have to take their car.
Well, you can, first of all, there's you can get food inside of the CVS store. because it has a fairly significant grocery component to it. But what
Okay,
I'm
I'm sorry,
suggesting to
that's
you,
just laughable. How many people are buying their fresh vegetables and meat and produce from CVS?
No.
I'm not
So,
suggesting that. What I'm suggesting to you is that given the conditions in the market and the pending opening of what is a category killer and a dominant grocery store, committing to you that we would be able to add another grocery store would just be untrue.
And I'm just
And
saying that you can't meet the goals. If the goals are to get people out of cars, you can't meet that goal. They're going to have to drive a lot.
well, we're not the ones who approved the Wegmans. So if you can get them to close that store and move here, we would be happy to have them.
I don't think that's necessary. I think that there are other options other than major grocery stores that are not the level of a CVS. And it would be great to hear from you that you do actively take this
Yeah,
seriously.
take it very seriously.
and that
We're
you're going to do this.
having conversations already with groups like Lidl, Fresh Market. We've had conversations with other grocery stores that have been interested in the Reston market, but as soon as they look at the data, they have expressed to us that they're not willing to make those kinds of commitments today.
And a farmer's market, micro grocery stores. When I lived in Roslyn, we had a very tiny one, but it was certainly more than a CVS. I'm just saying there are other options too, that if you were creative and taking it seriously, that it could, other things can be done.
Okay, well, I think we're very creative, and we frankly are taking this project very seriously. I don't think anybody else you were probably talking to is looking at knocking down, $35 billion buildings so that we can create the right ground plane for the community.
So where's the cycle track along Sunrise Valley? Because that's part of what we've wanted for this area.
So we are looking at that. We previously had the cycle track on the mid-block road because there was some discussion that would be preferable from the county perspective. I think it's going to likely turn out, and to be confirmed, but I think it is likely going to turn out that the preference will be to have the cycle track along Sunrise Valley Drive. So it aligns where the cycle track lines up with other adjacent developments. And when we have further, when we get farther, again, we're very early in the process. We haven't gotten any county comments. We haven't even been accepted yet. I hope we're going to be accepted soon in the next couple of days. We'll certainly let you all know. But I suspect that's going to be an early comment we get from the county. And I suspect that to be confirmed, we will likely see some movement on that.
The other thing that I'll just say on transportation is, next time you come back, it would be good to know more about the level of conversation you're having with the other property owners to the east and west, including Campus Commons, and then the other parcels that are adjacent in between you and the Lincoln. And then finally, if I may ask, that last slide, we saw that one tilting building all lit up. Is the plan that this is going to be a building that's lit up at night? What was that slide, that image?
I would say we're early in the design of the building. If you're familiar with the Yon building across the street, it has some architectural accent lighting on it. So there'd be, likely a pursuit similar to the existing Yon building on the Reston Station side to create that sister building feeling of a gateway on the toll road.
I think that since this is also so much closer to some of the residential neighborhoods, that we need to really think about the level of lighting there. Just as two final statements, the there is a light in your plans going into Great Meadows, but it says it's only a possibility. I think this is going to be required, but looking at that intersection even more so, why would you not consider a crosswalk on both sides? Right now, it looks like there's only a crosswalk on the west side. I'd like to see if we could also get a crosswalk on the east side, going from Great Meadows into your property. And then I think it was already said, but the drop-offs really don't work. And then also, I just think that mid-block street, especially as a pedestrian who walks over Wheelie quite frequently, having that right in, right out, no stoplight, that's very concerning. That's our only access north. And I don't think that you should have that mid-block street there. So that's what I've got. But Brian, I do hope you'll be reaching out to the other folks, especially, I mean, again, you have some homes directly across the street that are not necessarily part of clusters. All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's go on to Matt, then followed by Tammy, and then William Piggies.
I'll keep this relatively brief. Just to sort of follow up on the grocery store conversation, my personal take is that this area is very well served by grocery stores. I'm actually looking at Google Maps here. You've got the new Wegmans location within a mile. You've got Safeway within a mile, and Whole Foods within a mile, and a Harris Teeter 1.5 miles away. So I just think, it's a little bit disingenuous to say that this area is not being served well, or some kind of a food desert. Also understanding that, this is Reston and people do have cars and they will have cars. They may take the metro to work at Tyson's or DC every day. But, most of their grocery trips, they're going to be getting in their car and going to the grocery store, just like I would assume most of us all do when we go grocery shopping. That being said, the biggest sort of hole, I guess, or concern that I still have in your overall master plan is this wheelie pedestrian connection and how that ties in with the campus commons development. I know it's been brought up previously by another one of our commenters, but it was not really mentioned in the presentation. I know you did show a secondary pedestrian access along the north part of the site that connected to that at-grade connection at Wheelie Avenue. Going forward, this was a big concern of mine and something I brought up exhaustively when we were looking at the Camas Commons site. That is a major pedestrian thoroughfare there for a really large scale development on the other side of Wheelie Avenue as well. Thousands of retail, commercial and residential tenants on that whole strip of land on the other side of Wheelie. And if they're going to have metro access, how are we going to make that a safe connection coming back and forth across Wheelie Avenue? I know you mentioned some studies that were being looked into about perhaps putting Wheelie Avenue on a street diet. But if I had to have my choice, it's always been a below grade tunnel connection connecting your site to the campus commons site. So I would like, when you guys come back, to have a lot more information about that with some updates as to where the county is, any sort of coordination you may have been doing with campus commons and that development there. But I just think that overall, that connection point to me is a major connection point. I would not call it a secondary means of circulation through your site. I think it needs to be treated as a primary means of circulation and really be studied to make that as safe as possible, because I think it's going to be heavily trafficked. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Let's go on to Tammy, followed by William Piggies, and then Mr. Penniman after that.
Hello. Absolutely agree with Matt. Not a syllable. I spent hours going through this plan and every page of it and all of your forms. I would like you to put up page A4, A004 on the screen, please, from your plan set.
Let me find it. Do you want to ask your question while I'm pulling it up, Tammy?
No, I want to make an observation once you have it up.
Okay, well, hold on, let me find it. I've got the PowerPoint, but I got to find the development plan.
Okay. While you're doing that, what is I noticed that one of the residential buildings says phase 1. What is your phasing plan? That's phase 1. What else is in phase 1?
Yes, there really isn't a phasing between those buildings. It's just kind of a number 1, number 2. So the underground garage that supports all of these buildings is underneath both residential buildings, the Yon office building and the hotel. So all of that together, along with the connection to the Metro Bridge, is really phase 1.
Okay.
That would all be constructed as a single piece. And then the next office tower as you go west would be phase 2, and then the next tower as you go further west would be phase 3. But phase 1 is really the 4 buildings and the big chunk of pedestrian experience in public space and connection to Metro.
Okay, so that phase 1 is going to be an impressive hole in the ground with
big hole
a lot of construction of underground garage. And I certainly hope that there can be an agreement for an underpass from the east side of Wheelie west into your garage and an immediate exit up so that people can get to daylight with their bicycles and walking and their strollers and whatever, wheelchairs. Did you get up the A004?
Not yet. It's coming.
Okay.
Sorry.
Alrighty.
I got to download it because it's too big.
All right. Well, I'm going to say this out loud without a photo. You had one photo that was taken from the corner of Sunrise Valley looking northwest that showed the Wheelie side of the phase 1 residential building and the Yon building. I'm in shock that I'm the only one that is horrified at that vision. It looks like Lincoln Logs meets Darth Vader. And all of that timber balcony stuff, and nothing flows. As Mike said, there's very few trees. There's nothing to buffer that. It is not it's not at all compatible. And then you get to the Yon building, and if you get to 004 that I'm trying to show, and it's in our plan set, everybody got it. You see the existing Yon building on the north side of the toll road. And then you see the quote sister building on the south. There's nothing compatible between those two. Yeah, there we go.
This is the image you're looking for?
Exactly. What is compatible? You have white stripes, white diamonds to the north and squares to the south, and it looks like somebody was drinking when they decided to use their level to get to Plum. I'm sorry, but I don't think this is it may be, a very platinum building as far as sustainability. I'm all for that, but my God, we could have done a terraced upside down of the first Yon building and had biophilic trees coming off terraces. Have a pyramid terraced up. Could have been on 4 sides, could have been on 2 sides, hopefully on Wheatley, but some trees, some greenery, some softening. I think it's jarring as hell. Then the comment was made that the second phase of the residential going down Sunrise had a different color palette. What are y'all thinking here? The Lincoln itself looks like Mardi Gras. It's got 5 different colors on it. And it is it's what everybody is putting everywhere. It looks cheap. I know that these buildings are super expensive to build, but please pay attention to the outside aesthetics and get them to blend with nature and each other, and not all trying to be a movie star. It doesn't work. It's not compatible, and I don't think it's attractive at all. Moving on. What is the term of the 16%? I assume they're WDUs, not ADUs. Are
Yes,
they?
that is correct.
Okay.
16%
What is the
WDU.
term? 99 years?
It is whatever the term is under the county's current policies at the time that we go to implement the units, which I think is 50 years right now, but I don't want to give you the wrong information, so I will check that.
Okay. Well, we would like them to be longer. We're trying to get rid of this problem with people not being able to afford homes. And 50 years, I mean, Montgomery County has always done 99. So why Fairfax is different, I don't understand. It used to be 30, now it's 50. Hopefully it'll be 99 by the time you get in there. We talked about the wheelie connectivity. Oh my God, that pullover on wheelie for the Yon building? Absolutely not. That is so dangerous. Comstock has one on their existing, well, I won't even, they have one already, and it's where my dentist is, and it's terribly dangerous. And that's not even a busy street. You're taking wheelie, one of the two major north-south thoroughfares in Reston, and you're putting a pullover on it. The right-in, I would have it be a right-in only on the mid-block, and I wouldn't let people come back out on wheelie on that, but I can see people going in on it. I appreciate Michelle's concern about pedestrians and cars turning right in front of pedestrians with no light, but yeah, okay. I have, by the way, 9 pages of thorough notes on this, and I can't take that much time, but you talked about the pillars and the parking garage, and you wanted some sort of a variations or variance there. Squeezing in parking spots is in a garage is not a smart move. It's anxiety provoking. Everybody's got a gun these days. I wouldn't press that. Yes, the bike trail has to be on Sunrise Valley. That's, a fluid movement. I understand you'd like it to be interior of your development, but that's not how Sunrise Valley is designed. I don't know. What is silver lead? Is that the highest? I assume the Yon building is not going to be silver lead. What is it going to be?
So that's what we're currently working off of. So we may have updates. We still, as Chris mentioned, it's still a little bit early for that. So we will continue to update you on our progress, but that's what we're working toward right now.
Okay, well, this is Reston. You are Comstock. We expect a lot more from you than we do some little bitty developer. So it's got to be way above silver, gold at least, if not platinum. And I'm talking about residential also. Are you bringing gas into the site, or are you going to try to do it all electric, or do you even know?
We'll be bringing gas into the site.
You will. So it's more fossil fuel and less fighting climate change. Not good. You really do need to be green. We are a biophilic community. The TSA is biophilic, by the way. Some people think, oh, it's only the PRC. No, it's one Reston. We're all biophilic. Also, well, I'm going to let William Pegways talk about the roof system. Okay, I think that's that. I'm sorry that I'm negative on the aesthetics of this, but I'm just amazed that I'm the only one who's commented on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Mr. Pegues, and then Mr. Penniman.
Okay. Yes. Well, I'll make myself reveal myself here. So I just thought I'd mention as a little curiosity thing that you're tearing down one of my buildings. Actually, all of the executive buildings that are on your site were my projects earlier on. But if you had to tear down one of them, I think you chose the right one, given its structural problems over the years with its strange strap system. Anyway, just to pick up quickly on what Tammy just mentioned about gas as a fossil fuel, we want to really go beyond that. It's not just a fossil fuel. It is also becoming apparent that gas as provided into residential buildings specifically, but anywhere, is a now indoor major pollutant. This has come out in the news more or less over the past several months, close to a year maybe, about how bad it actually is because of the natural leakage that comes from the appliances, not just the source. Okay, so anyway, one of the other things I want to mention is that you really need to plan and actually show where the utilities are coming into these buildings, because one of the things that's really happened to some of the others across the belt, across the toll road from you, is that the utility locations as they appear on the site sometimes are not necessarily under your control, and they end up encroaching considerably onto space. You can actually get information that would let you know how big they need to be, because this really cramps sidewalks typically. And makes spaces really unusable as well as unattractive. See, the next thing would be to make a statement about your vegetated roofs. I look at them and I see that you have a number of extensive ones. You have this other one that you call intensive, and you talk about a 2-inch water retention layer, and I'm not sure what that really is. So I don't know whether this is like a sponge roof or whether it's trying to become a purple roof. It doesn't really have all of the information there to make it a purple roof. I look at your plan views, which don't really show it, only they show up as little green tiny strips and squares on some of the perspectives, aerial views. There ought to be a lot more of them. I don't know why you don't put them up on top of all of the roofs, even though they're not occupiable. It just ought to be there. If you use a true purple roof with its water detention system, you can extremely cut down the size of your bioretention requirements. You can get rid of or severely cut back the size of stormwater retention and detention tanks. And so you really need to go that way. One of the things that it can actually do is it can actually save you money, because if you can cut down the size of these tanks, well, that could be leasable space if they were happening to be underground or under some of your areas. Whether it's on site or whether it's taking up space in or under a building. So I'd really like to see a more aggressive as well as progressive vegetated roof system. I don't know why they're just such small strips. If some of them have pavers on the roofs because you're going to use them as plazas, which really don't seem to show up, but seem to imply they may be that way, you can do what's called a blue roof under the pavers, or you can do a sponge roof under the pavers as well. These terms, sponge roof, blue roof, they're not proprietary. They're generic. The entire purple roof concept is generic in that many roofing manufacturers can provide the system. It's just the internal components to make them happen. So that's really very important. The other thing is that, as I mentioned on the other project, Fairfax City and Fairfax County have been working with using the catch basin drainage from street curbs turning those into nice little dry wells or even rain gardens. They have a street that they did this to that is in Fairfax City. Just on the edge of it, it's a residential area where they have, I think it's 4 of these that are coming down a mild slope, and every curb cut where it used to be simply going into a stormwater drainage system or draining further down the hill in the gutter takes it into a stormwater detention vault and pulls the water directly out of the curb and through this. And then if it overflows, then it goes back into the curb again at the other end and then goes into the next one down the way. They've got another one, another test setup that's on a service road that parallels Route 7 in Tyson's Corner. That's just outside of the new Porcelanosa display room there, and they have 2 of those. They are more of the detention type of, I guess you would say, dry wells rather than a rain garden, and they've turned them into basically stone gardens. You can put most anything you want back on top of it, including lawn, God forbid, but it can become very attractive. These things could occur actually inside of some of your, or underneath of some of your park areas. The water actually does absorb very well around here into the clay. I've actually, with my neighbor, I've installed dry wells from all my downspouts, and now, except in an outrageously heavy rain, no water leaves my site that falls on it. So, and I live in a townhouse that has almost no land, but it works out really great. So dry wells is a new concept. It's not as, I guess
William,
you
we're
would
going to
say.
have to try to wrap you up here. We have
Okay,
a
that's
lot of
fine.
public comment.
Just you can have trouble trying to find out information about dry wells, but it's out there if you just simply search for it. Basically, that is all that I had to say at this point.
All right, Mr. Penniman, and then I know we have some people from the public that would like to I encourage them to write in the chat, and I can try to get some of their comments as well. But Mr. Penniman.
Okay, as a general overview, I like the layout. I think the circulation within the site is way better than it would have been before. And I do think it will provide much better access for neighbors to get to the
Yes.
subway. So I think that's very beneficial. One thing, you had park areas, 2 comments on those. One is, I do think you need some consolidation so there are more active play areas for adults and children. And I wasn't sure that you had what the areas on each side of the subway should have, and that is a big public gathering area. Maybe that's part of what you envision, but it isn't clear where it is or how big it is. But I think that's an important thing to be sure you have. Glass, very pretty. You need to go look at the American Bird Conservancy website on bird-friendly glass. There is so much. I mean, there's something upward of 1 billion birds a year are killed in the United States from flying into glass. And buildings like this, particularly, when it goes up to 50, 100 feet, it's just a lot of birds are going to die, and bird-friendly windows should be part of the plan. A question, is most of the parking for these buildings going to be underground, or is some of it going to be podium style?
It will be a mix of both.
Okay, I encourage you to have as little of the podium part as possible across, I don't want to insult anybody, but across the toll road, the above ground parking is really ugly. And you're going to have this, splendid building and collection of buildings, I think, and it would be highly beneficial to have it underground where it's hidden. On the sustainability issues, I just echo what people have said before. LEED Gold or higher really should be, and then for the fanciest building, it ought to be platinum. Look more closely at going all electric, particularly for the residential, wherever you can do it, because as William pointed out, indoor air pollution issues, particularly in residential, is a severe issue. For children with asthma, it causes it, and it's just getting to be a worse problem. I vote for a, I know my vote's important. I vote for a below grade crossing of Wheelie. Record that. The idea of orienting your outdoor activities on the Wheelie side, if you can pull it off, that's great. I think it'd be great. However, just a warning, as somebody who lives in the neighborhood, cars driving along Wheelie go too damn fast, and I don't know that it's going to give you the kind of atmosphere your diners are going to be looking for. Oh, and just one other thing, and that is, as to the best of my recollection, Campus Commons is not going to have any retail, or at least none to mention. So those people are going to be your customers. So having good retail and an easy, safe way to get across is going to be pretty valuable for your businesses. Anyway, that's it. Thank you. That was a very good presentation.
Thanks, Bill. David Vanell or Sue Straits, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rob. Just a quick comment, feeding off what something that Tammy and Michelle talked about that corner building. Please don't try to emulate what's going on with that Yang building. It's a mildly interesting piece of architecture turned cartoonish by those lights. And what you really don't want to do is try to look like that. It's a distraction. I don't know who decided that was a good idea, but I think they should be hunted down and made to move to Loudoun County. That's it.
My questions have already been addressed by others. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, and just real quick on what Dave said, I kind of am a little concerned that the second Yon building is a little too tall and too is trying to do too much on this south side of Reston as we get a little bit closer to more residential folks. But I'm not going to reiterate the comments from others that I made, but I do want to mention that one of the things that I don't think is working on the Reston Station side that I'm concerned about here is the parking and the way you interact with the uses at the surface. It's the wayfinding at Reston Station is very difficult. People are having a little bit trouble, getting to where they want to go. And then the way that the plaza, we all thought that plaza would operate differently, but now you just have to police it because so people don't use it as a kiss and ride. So I think you're going to have the same issues on the south side of Reston. And what I would hate to see is a lot of what appears to be nice plaza work and nice open space to be blocked off and become unusable in many forms just because you're trying to police it away from being a kiss and ride, and it just becomes a big operational issue. So that's something you guys have to take a really hard look at. Yeah, this whole notion of, it seems like the drop-offs on Wheelie and on Sunrise Valley Drive, I do not believe are a good idea. They're not helping the pedestrian connectivity. They're not really in line with the vision that we had on as part of the Wheelie Avenue pedestrian crossing task force, and I just don't think are a good idea from a transportation standpoint. We haven't talked tonight about whether or not the streets internal to the site intend to be public or private, but given you have a street A right over top of a parking garage, that tells me it has to be private. And the goal of the area has been to try to promote the public streets, and so that is a little concerning as well. So I'll convey the rest of my comments in writing. But I did want to get to Commissioner Carter, and then I do want to see if there's public comment. And I know we're running late tonight, but I know this is important. Commissioner Carter?
Yes, just a couple things. I don't want to reiterate that. The whole access to Metro needs to be worked out. Is there a kiss and ride where the buses go? How do the pedestrians get in there? Are there going to be proffers that set that up as public space? So right now it's all 100% private, and we need to work on that. The other aspect, I would, this is just a suggestion. When you meet with the community, rather than a presentation, I would encourage not just a presentation and so what do you think kind of thing, but that you work with all of the access issues. That cycle tract on Sunrise Valley, if you have a cycle tract on Sunrise Valley, how do you get to the metro station? This drop off or not on Wheelie, the crosswalk there or the tunnel, access to Metro, that you have kind of a charrette process where you would just sit down with the community and talk about the access to it and leave it open. Don't come in with a solution. Just open it up. I think the community is now pretty much aware of this area, and after going through Campus Commons, they know the kinds of things that they're thinking about. And I would urge you to get that out, not as a presentation again, as just sort of a sit down. I've got lots of other things to say, but I think if we could start off with get that access right, that would be helpful. And I think that's enough for me. We may have some people from outside and we should hear from them.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Let me ask Lisa, I'm not seeing public on my screen, so how can you help me figure this out?
I am not aware. We have lots of attendees. I don't know if those are residents.
Yeah, I think that's the public, Rob. If you go at the bottom, expand participants, go to the bottom, you see attendees, and you can say view all attendees, and you'll see a lot, and they have exclamation points next to their name, which I'm guessing means they want to say something.
Yeah, I'm having a real problem with my screen here.
Would you like me just to introduce them?
Sure.
I think
And
that the exclamation point can sometimes mean that they're not paying attention.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't have, I'm just not accessing that. My scroller's not working very well, and for some reason I'm not seeing. So I'm seeing a couple comments in the chat.
I think if anyone has a question, they're able to raise their hand as an attendee.
You do have quite a few attendees. That's all the more reason for that. Do your outreach a little differently.
Well, in terms of outreach, so some of the folks on this list are folks that I have talked to encourage them to watch this meeting.
Yeah.
So that we could then have, I think, more of the follow-up conversation that you described, Commissioner Carter.
Yeah, I think that's the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a great idea. I can also tell you that I don't know how many, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think people who are in the attendees out of 17 are on our team.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I got my screen back here now. And yeah, if anybody from the audience wants to speak, please raise your hand in the chat and we'll try to get to you. I will read a couple comments here that are in the chat itself. You know, somebody said they like the lights in the Comstock building and to the north of the toll road. It's a matter of taste. Another comment is we walk several times per week from Wethersfield to Reston Station for CVS and restaurants. How will walkability from the south to the Reston Station be maintained during the years of construction? Someone also went on to comment, Also, we currently use the daycare facility, and I like that the new site would be further away from all of the office traffic, and it isn't in a place with much through traffic. So I think this would feel safer at a pickup and drop-off spot. And let's see.
While you're reading those, can we get an answer perhaps on how how connectivity will be maintained during the years or during the time of construction?
Sure. Hey, this is John Harrison again. So throughout the construction, we would obviously have to maintain access to all of the kind of the roads that are on the perimeter of the site as well as through the site, so that people could get from the adjacent properties to the metro. So it will be, you know, as we phase through the project, our goal is to get the parking area excavated, built, and essentially open before the buildings are occupied as well. We're happy to work with Brian and get back to you on how the project will get phased and where those pedestrian routes will be during construction.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more information on that for future discussions.
Are you keeping the sidewalk that runs down the Dulles Toll Road ramp from Wheelie down to the metro? Now it goes into a elevator, I guess. You're gonna keep that? The bus bays are there, but they're going away, but you're gonna keep the sidewalk?
I don't think that's on our property.
I was going to say the same thing.
I
believe you're right.
Yeah, I think that is to be determined based on what happens with the reconfiguration of the bus bay area, but I don't think that's actually on our site.
Also, the study from, and actually I think it goes from Isaac Newton Square to Sunrise. That is a Rachel Flynn deal, and that was supposed to start 6 months after phase 2 starts, so that it can be ascertained when Wheelie is no longer a commuter end of line, what actually is going to be the situation in Reston. Well, we don't even have a date for phase 2 to open, let alone wait 6 months. So I wouldn't hold on to that hope as being, I mean, it's sad, very sad, but that's the parameters of that study. Thank you.
Mike, you sent me a note that you thought this Susie Valent had her hand up. I don't see her hand raised, but I don't know if Susie.
It was before, it's not now.
All right.
There's another question about how many cars will go in and out in a 24-hour period.
We will have that answer for you after we have the traffic study finalized.
Yeah, it'll be good to see that traffic study.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we got through all the comments. I know it's been a long presentation. Listen, we really appreciate your team to be here tonight. It's a big application. You know, it's extremely important for Reston, that's for sure. And you hear a lot of great comments. I do encourage, again, the committee and or the public to submit written comments as well, especially on, you know, large size application like this. And you know, we look forward to working with you all and making sure, you know, we all can, you know, do what's right for this section of Reston. So with that, Brian, I'll give you the last
I will be mercifully brief. We very much appreciate your time. We're looking forward to working with you all in this application. We're, as you can see from us and our team, we're really excited about it. We think it's going to be a really great improvement over the prior plans. And if anybody has any additional comments or want to jot down the same comments you made tonight and send them to Mr. Chairman to send them on to us, we'd be happy to receive them. So if anybody wants to give us any additional comments as you think of them, just let us know and we will be back with additional information and we will keep you updated as we move through the county process.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Thanks to Lisa for running the show tonight. I know this was a pretty long meeting, but it was very important, and I appreciate everybody's attendance. And I need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All right.
Second.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, and I'm sure we will be meeting again in June.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.